How's it going, everyone? And yeah, as you can see, everything's a little different than it tends to be. I have to do this now if I want to set up how my screens are because StreamYard wanted to introduce this new feature called scenes, essentially. So you can set up different demo scenes for yourself, which is, I guess, a way for people to set up their streams a little bit better or however they want to do that. It's weird. I'll play around with it for future streams, but probably won't for this one. But got a lot of people in chat already. What's up, Sea Monster, Joe Smo? What's up? What's up, Antonio? Hey, Zim Sam. I don't know how to say that last name. I'm sorry, but hello. You're new. Welcome, welcome. Minecraft world. But how you guys all doing tonight? It's a wonderful Tuesday. I'm in pretty good when it comes to the scheduling of doing all of these streams and just videos in general. So you guys saw a short earlier today. You're gonna get a short next Thursday coming up, and then you'll have another video or stream Tuesday and Thursday. I'm just really happy that I'm actually able to have a more consistent level of production with things going, and I have a few other things in the background. So I just love giving you guys all this content. I won't be able to join you right now. So I'm watching to park with some friends. That's fine. I mean, hey, at least you're still giving me a view, so I appreciate that a ton. Like that's important. Even if you aren't here, you're still with us in spirit. When we getting the Zimzilla U2s? Oh goodness, like a Zogra U2s. We'll see. We'll see. Like, well, I guess speaking of U2s, I'll just put that there in the chat. So like Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, that's where I'll stream. But yeah, people are generous. The doing stuff for the Patreon helps me do these things more often. Like even as little as $1. If everyone puts that into the channel, that means I'll have so much more financial freedom to work on stuff. So if you are being generous and want to help grow the channel, I would appreciate that. I should be able to join as soon as you're ready for people to come in. Yeah, I'm going to start bringing people in just a second. My apologies in because, well, it's really short for Zimzilla. I think it's a good nickname, by the way. Yeah, well, I mean, everyone, when they see me in a lot of cases, they'll usually just say, hey, Zim, instead of hello, Zimzilla 99. But yeah, how's everyone else doing tonight? Because Antonio says it's midnight in his place, which I appreciate you for coming on the stream on the other side of the planet, essentially, to come and say hey to us and join the chat here. But yeah, so we're going to start bringing in people. And what I always love to do is, first off, giving everyone a link to the Discord, because getting into the Discord is the easiest way for you to get onto the streams. I like to give people priority on that, and since they're the people who are interacting with the community the most, I feel that that is a privilege I give people. And again, signing up for the Patreon does mean there'll be more privileges in the future. But there we go. We're going to start doing some invites, and if you are part of the Discord, you'll always see the invites to these streams always in main general. It's just the easiest way to find it. And yeah. Sorry, I don't have teleportation. It's 4:30 in the evening where I am. Oh, so you're a little bit behind me. Okay. Yeah, so I just got to do things when I can based on my time zone, plus like sleep schedule, all of that. But we've got our first guest joining us tonight. I was actually on his stream yesterday before I keeled over due to my sleep aid, and that's the Vic.
Hello, everybody.
You get to join us as part of the Zim collage, the Zimmers, as we like to say around here. My Zimmers. And we also got the Sea Monster. How's it going? He's a quiet sea. He's a very shy sea.
He's a sea man.
He's a sea.
Yeah, that's never getting old.
Well, what's it called when your name is literally when you have C in front of your name and there's an M there? You know, the jokes write themselves.
Yeah, yeah, true. Yeah, I'm doing well. Yeah, I pretty much have found out that I have a GVK Skullcrawler on the way, being shipped right now. Like I just got the email like 5 minutes ago, so
You like,
looking forward to that.
did someone give it to you, or you just like ordered it yourself?
No, I ordered it online.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the one that gets bisected by Mechagodzilla. Let's just say.
Okay. I love this right here. Watching the stream to get a Zim job. Bro, Zim job.
Yeah.
Prepare to get zimmed, as it were. I am Zim! But, yeah, so we're going to be doing a D-Man video tonight. I think everyone's pretty familiar with who D-Man is, being one of the biggest, or I think the biggest Godzilla video essayists and like YouTubers for quite some time now, if I'm not mistaken. But I think like there may be some channels who have surpassed him, but I think that like when people think of like Godzilla YouTubers, a lot of people think of D-Man or like Dangerville or Goji Center, but those are all newer channels. And he wanted to talk about
Those
an
are all
issue.
corporate.
Yeah, the corporate. And that doesn't stream. This guy. Oh, I mean, I have no problem with D-Man himself. Like, there is nothing wrong with him. I think that sometimes he has weird takes, and maybe it's just the farm content. I don't know. Like, I've only met him in person twice, but he seems like a good guy. But I think that generally his video here was a pretty big miss, as it were. So.
Yeah, a good guy with some D-mans in him, I guess.
There we go. And since this video is literally just 13 minutes, I'm not going to do YouTubers on speed today. This is going to be normal speed for a Zimcast. And it's not even like a special numbered Zimcast. This is a Zimcast 87, not even Zimcast 90. Are we doing no YouTubers on speed? I don't know. The world's coming to an end. So let us begin then, shall we, gentlemen?
Do it.
Oh, Blackerney says he can't hear.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
I can't hear.
The audio's not working. That's really interesting, huh? That's really strange.
I was trying to figure out if it was me.
Okay,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Zim. That's really strange. Okay, I'll have to just share the audio again because I'm sharing my entire screen. So let's try that one more time.
Godzilla fans are weird, and
There you
Can you hear
go.
that?
There we go.
I did the same thing. That's the same thing I did. Why did it not work that time?
You go normal speed once, and this.
I go normal. This is what I get for being a normal person. God decides to punish me. Godzilla fans are weird, real. The audio's been zimmed. No, the audio was zimmed. I guess I zimmed it up. Or you could say it was zucked.
Yeah.
you should know, because if you haven't noticed, I happen to be a pretty big one, so I should know. One thing that I've always found really interesting is this weird Godzilla versus Kong debate where, in 1962, King Kong and Godzilla were brought together to do a big fight. It was very cool. It was the highest attended Godzilla film of all time. I think technically, if you account for inflation, it's also the highest grossing Godzilla film. It was a huge success. It revitalized the Godzilla franchise, and the reason it was such a big deal is because King Kong at the time was the most famous movie monster that there was, and so putting him together with Godzilla was a really big deal. Because they did that movie, there has been an ongoing fan debate between King Kong versus Godzilla, who's stronger, and it culminated in 2021's Godzilla versus Kong, where things went pretty much how everybody expected. Godzilla beats Kong, and that's that. One thing that was weird is that the filmmaker, Adam Wingard, didn't have a ton of confidence in Kong's ability to pull off the fight, and rather than just portraying Kong as simply stronger, they had to give him an axe so that he could fight Godzilla. This is only...
We'll pull this up later, but I'm curious, people in the chat, has anyone ever thought that King Kong was physically stronger than Godzilla? Because even from the first the first King Kong versus Godzilla, King Kong was never stronger out and out compared to Godzilla.
Mm. The way I always saw it was akin to God. Kong may be like it's somewhat physically stronger, but Godzilla is more powerful in the sense that he has more powers and just more overall. What's the word?
He's got more
It's just like
abilities. I
yeah,
love this.
like
Godzilla wouldn't keep Kong as a slave in his new empire. Pathetic. I wouldn't even keep you as a slave in my empire. But yeah, so he's gonna talk about like the nerfs that that Godzilla got for like other movies and the like. So we'll talk about it later. I think someone said maybe in the show era, not the Monsterverse. No, yeah, no. Kong has never been like just physically stronger than Godzilla. But like in terms of electricity power, Kong, he was able to throw Godzilla by his tail over his shoulder. Does he discuss the Glazers? You know, those guys from Twitter that make more problems than weird Godzilla fans? No, doesn't really. But I do have the tweets that he mentions in this video pulled up, and I want to just go over the interactions he had with them.
Only fueled the fire of the Godzilla Kong debate on like, is Kong even worthy of fighting Godzilla? Is he even remotely as strong as him? Toho has weighed in on this and said in their opinions, King Kong and Godzilla should be equal strength. I mean, you've seen this back in the 1962 film, but as recently as a tie-in manga for Godzilla Kong the New Empire, they were stating this. I find it to be an interesting topic, and yesterday on stream, chat was asking me about this, so I opened up about it a little bit.
And I know F29 said I should pull up the ad blocker, but I don't really care. And I'll actually let the ad play while I talk about this. The clip that he mentioned doesn't even really discuss Godzilla and Kong being of equal strength, and it doesn't even have it translated either. So I'm like, I don't understand why that was brought up there at all. So your guess is as good as mine. The weakest Godzilla lost to was missiles. The weakest thing Kong lost to was bullets. Yeah, that should generally give you a disparity in power. But even going over like the kind of monster Kong is versus the kind of monster Godzilla is, Godzilla being a nuclear age monster will naturally be just stronger by that metric of how powerful things are at the time. And as a result, the monster needs to be of comparable, if not surpassing, all of the modern advancements that they appear in at their time period. And Kong, unfortunately, dies to biplanes, but for the time are some of the most advanced weapons of their era, whereas Godzilla dies to the Oxygen Destroyer, which is the most advanced weapon of its era, based on the fact that it's outclassing nuclear weapons, which are now the most advanced weapons of their era. You also have to consider the size of the smallest Kong and smallest Godzilla. Well, if we go by that, then you go into like all the chibi designs and stuff like that. But even the smallest Godzillas would still be stronger than the smallest Kongs.
Constantly baffled and confused by the Godzilla Kong fandom debate. You know, like Godzilla -1. People want to see Godzilla fight another monster in the sequel to Godzilla -1. I agree. I would love to see Godzilla fight another monster in the sequel to Godzilla -1. So I made some like fun photoshops. And one of the sets of photoshops I made was Godzilla fighting King Kong 2005. Because a lot of us have said that Godzilla -1 feels very tonally similar to King Kong 2005. So I made that Photoshop and I posted it. And people lost their minds. Like, Godzilla would tear Kong into pieces. Sure, probably. These are the same people, however, who are trying to say that Titanosaurus would go toe-to-toe with Godzilla.
Well, he did. Titanosaurus went against the second strongest version of Showa Godzilla. So, yeah, Titanosaurus would do pretty well against Godzilla, since Titanosaurus was fighting Godzilla for most of that fight in Terror of Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, and King Kong would not be able to take on minus Goji, because minus Goji's atomic breath literally results in like pretty much a mini atomic bomb. Like, like I don't even. It's not even close to being a match, really.
Yeah. Well, I also say too that like I'd say Showa Godzilla is easily stronger than minus Godzilla, but like if you were to introduce Toho monsters that have fought against Godzilla, a lot of the Toho monsters have already fought a version of Godzilla and are shown to be comparable to Godzilla without needing power-ups. Like, people say, like, oh, Gorosaurus, he's confused by Gorosaurus. Gorosaurus, the monster who fought against King Ghidorah, was arguably one of the most impactful members of that group of monsters to help beat King Ghidorah, who snapped Ghidorah's back like a twig and destroy monsters. Yeah, I could say Gorosaurus is pretty comparable to Godzilla. Ebra, not so much. Even in his film, Ebra isn't as strong as like Gorosaurus, Titanosaurus, for example. But yeah, I could see why people would want to introduce more Toho monsters to fight against Godzilla instead of bringing in another property. Because like, even as cool as it would be to see this Godzilla interact with a King Kong, I don't want to see another Godzilla fight another King Kong since we already have that.
Yeah, like we don't want like two competing versions, really. It's kind of like we don't want like two competing versions of like Batman out there, like with the DC James Gunn universe and the Matt Reeves Robert Pattinson version.
Yeah, like it's this. Actually, that's a good example because a lot of people don't want to see two Batmen who are in like the early stages of their career with very grounded settings. Like the Gun Batman is supposed to be like really into his career. Damian Wayne's in the picture, so it's a very different Batman in a very different universe compared to Patterson's Batman.
Yeah, and it's not even like one's animated and one's like like big budget Hollywood live action. Like they're both of them are big budget Hollywood live action. So it's not even, you can't even use like the whole thing of like, oh, like we can have like with Spider-Man where like you could have like a live action Spider-Man going on at the same time as the Spider-Verse movies, as well as whatever the hell else Sony was trying to do.
Exactly, yeah. And another one here, King Kong had to get a power up to win against a weaker version of Show Godzilla. That should probably explain the Titanosaurus thing. Yeah, exactly. As well as I think Anguirus has a chance to fight minus Goji. It's been 20 years since he was in a film, and the most recent portrayal Anguirus made was in Singular Point. Yeah, I would love to see a minus Anguirus appear. Or really, if anyone was to ask me what monsters I would want to see in a Godzilla -1 sequel, Gorosaurus, Baragon, Anguirus, Varan would be the monsters I'd want to see. And I would be interesting to see like a Ebra. Ebra would be fun, or even like Kamakrus or Kumonga. Like very not like realistic looking, but grounded monsters before you like Godzilla -1 ever tackle something like an alien, like Ghidorah, for example.
Yeah, like I definitely would like to see him take on Anguirus pretty much above anything else, because I think a minus Anguirus would look pretty gnarly.
Mm-hmm. Like even I would say, yeah, Ghidorah, even though like Ghidorah deals with aliens, Ghidorah feels more grounded of an alien concept than like King Ghidorah, where King Ghidorah is already an established alien monster, where Ghidorah, Ganymedes, and Kamibus were mutated by an alien. So like I would love to see the Yogg trio, or at least Ghidorah, appear in another like in a monster movie, and especially alongside Godzilla.
People saying Kumonga, like they're thinking these.
Oh yeah, he brings up Kumonga. So yeah, Kumonga did overpower Godzilla, and they required the father-son atomic breath to beat Kumonga, and Kumonga also stabbed out Godzilla's eye, compared to King Kong, who arguably did not as well against Godzilla and needed a power-up to win.
Monsters by all means should go toe-to-toe with Godzilla in a future Godzilla -1 movie or whatever. Same with the Monsterverse. Like you talk about, like if you have Titanosaurus show up in the Monsterverse and kick Godzilla's ass a little bit, people are fine with that because it's a Toho monster. It's just because King Kong's another franchise. That's why people get so upset about it.
Well, I mean, that's a kind of vague statement, because I've seen a lot of people who don't want Godzilla to be losing to other Toho monsters as well. So if we're being very general with these, with making these claims, the inverse is true, that no one, like Toho fans, do not want Godzilla losing out of Toho monsters. They want Godzilla to always win. Like the big reason why people hate Godzilla losing to the Mothra twins, no one wants Godzilla to lose there. So I don't think it has anything to do with King Kong specifically being another franchise.
I think there's also the fact that Monsterverse Godzilla, like he's like so powerful that having like something not too different from being like an aquatic dinosaur that's like doesn't really have like too much in the way of unique abilities, like having an edge over Godzilla would just be kind of weird, especially given like how powerful we've seen Godzilla up to this point in the Monsterverse.
Yeah. Actually, Vic, I'm gonna keep this on here, but Vic, say your point, because you were about to say something.
I was gonna say that considering Monsterverse Godzilla and where he's at, I feel like any Toho Kaiji would want to bring in would have to be on par with his power level right now. And I think there's creative ways where you can do that, where you can have different elements. Like essentially, if most, if not all, of the monsters are radiation based, so it would just have to be another process of scaling up those Titans. Since in my pitch for the GXK sequel, I had a powered up Barb, the Queen Muto, um, in the introduction to that pitch. So I think something like that. Like if you want to bring Titanosaurus into it, I would just scale him up to what the Monsterverse has at this point, with powers that both combine his old abilities and features with the new power system, I guess, if we're calling it that.
Yeah, I know, like, when it comes to the Monsterverse and how it's done its powers, most of the combatants have been Tooth and Claw primarily, with Godzilla and Ghidorah being the exceptions, and Mothra also with her silk spray. And the Mutos are really the only monster that has like an explicit ability that like hacks another ability where they can cancel Godzilla's atomic breath, although granted, it's only something that we know of explicitly in the books, and you can't really tell if that's the case on screen. And the only reason that you can confirm it could be happening on screen is because Godzilla's breath has changed between films. And I think that, like, yeah, there, one thing that the Monsterverse or even like a lot of the Godzilla films should do more often is have monster abilities cancel each other out in more interesting ways, where instead of just, oh, new monster appears, big monster is strong, we need new monster to be also strong, because ultimately the power scaling has continued to just escalate, even though in GXK some of the feats aren't as impressive as, say, King of the Monsters. But I think a lot of the writers believe or are confident in the idea that unless the monster actually is stronger than the last, that the audience isn't going to be as invested in the story.
Yeah, like at this point, we just have, like, the only way at this point, at least with Godzilla as he stands in GXK, like he's just gonna need to be. We would have to like kind of like power him down a bit at this, like really not power monsters up, but other monsters up, but power him down so that the stakes could be like somehow powered down. Like I don't know, like they could just. Like I don't know, like make up something like the ANAB or anti-nuclear energy bacteria or something like that.
That's why hacks abilities are always important, because when you bring hacks into the mix, it allows there to be creative solutions to power. So then you don't have to explicitly have monsters win primarily through physical fights or just direct power. But this one comment that I think is a good point raised is the difference is that Kong was presented to be hurt by things like guns and planes throughout the most popular solo Kong film, while Godzilla hasn't. I think that definitely plays a role into it. And ultimately, I agree to this degree. I think that as much as I like the idea of Godzilla and Kong crossing over, I don't necessarily want Godzilla and Kong to always exist within the same universe, because I think that stories that you can tell with King Kong work well when Kong is more vulnerable and a lot smaller. And Godzilla has never been too much smaller than what he's always been at, like 50 meters, unless it's a pre-mutated form. So Godzilla's always kind of sat within the realms of his normal size, and he's only just gotten bigger instead of smaller. Whereas Kong has fluctuated in size from being really like pretty average size for a monster that getting really big around Godzilla size to like smaller things like Kong, King of the Apes, for example. But real quick, what are your thoughts on Goji Chronic, KO Team, and Viper? I don't watch Viper, and I like KO Team the best, and Goji Chronic I like second best. Got a question for you three, big one at that. What are your thoughts on Mothra, Gemini, and Kaisei Goji? I don't think everyone's familiar with those fan like interpretations of the characters.
No.
So like you'd have to tag. We're all in the Discord, so if you tag us in the Discord, if you're in it, they'll be able to. You'll be able to get their thoughts better there.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with those at all.
Some people just don't like how Kong dominates the Monsterverse now. That's why the discourse is the way it is.
Wait.
That's also true too.
Wait, aren't those the new Godzilla and Mothra? Or am I getting that wrong?
Oh yeah, they are. They are. What's it called? I completely forgot that Mothra had a unique name to her. Yeah, the Kaisei Goji is the new comic that's coming out later this year, and the Mothra one is the new design. I think that like I said in my short, because I was confused. I was like, Kaisei, what is that? But yeah, I like the Kaisei Goji design. I think the sketch is all right, but I like some of the cover art and certain shots of him, like splash pages. I really like how he looks. I love the green on him. And as for the Mothra Gemini design, I didn't realize that was the name of that version. I think Mothra Gemini is a little too floofy, in my opinion. Like, actually, what I'll do is I'll just remove that for a second because I'll pull up both designs here since someone's asking. So, let's see. Godzilla. So, there we go. And Mothra Gemini. I do like, however, the exclusive monster for the new Mothra comic. That is actually a really interesting design for a monster. So I'll pull up the new monster design as well.
Is there like any further elaboration on the comment about how about the discourse regarding Monsterverse Kong being dominant or something? Or
I would say we can go over this and then we'll go over Kong dominating the Monsterverse and then we'll go back to the video.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and of course, when I finally bring it up, the image is blurry. I love that. It's because it's. I know why. It's because it's from Instagram. That's fun. Is there a version of it? I wanted to go to my video and pull it up because that's going to be kind of annoying. But this one works fine. Like the proportions are a little wonk here, but I do like how he looks here. There are prominent fangs, the orange eyes, the green spines. Overall, I'd say it's a pretty good design. And it's a new design too, which I appreciate.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah. And then this is the new monster that's going to appear in the Mothra comic, which definitely feels like it goes really well with this other new monster that was in the Space Godzilla comic, which is interesting that the comic lines that are focusing on monsters other than Godzilla seem to always be introducing new monsters, which I appreciate because you can't go wrong with new monsters. But I like both of their designs. As for the Mothra design, it's just a little too floofy, in my opinion. Like it's almost like a woolly moth or like a mixture of mammal and moth because of all the fuzz there. And I think that some of the things that make Mothra unique are lost there.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a bit of a mix between Heisei Mothra and Monsterverse Mothra, and the wings kind of look a bit too Batra-like.
Yeah. That's like in a way, yeah, especially with how like angular the patterns are on it, although they aren't like shredded at the ends like Batra's wings are. But yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of the design here because you can even see like the classic Mothra versus the new one. I would just rather take the classic design over this one.
I personally really like the new Mothra. I think I talked about it on one of my streams with Minecraft World. I think we both really like the new Mothra design. I think I said it's like in my top 2 Mothras. Because my favorite Mothra is the Tokyo SOS one.
Yeah.
And this one's a close second.
I would say like my favorite's probably Tokyo SOS, followed by the regular Showa design, with the Rebirth films being the third.
Yeah, like Tokyo SOS Mothra is like pretty much a perfect blend. I think the design was also carried over in the Final Wars.
Yeah, it is.
Believe. Yeah. Like I'd say that's probably like a perfect mix of like of essentially like making her kind of making her look like an updated version of the Showa era, but like there's like a little more polish to her. But I still like the GMK one and the Monsterverse versions quite a bit as well. So
yeah, as well as like even like here with the both designs right next to each other, the addition of this right here just makes her body seem kind of fat, and since her legs are woolly as well, it just adds to her just being too like almost like she got thrown in like a washing machine and then she was put in the dryer and then like she dried herself off and like all her fuzz just popped out.
Yeah, she's got a lot of mothballs like
yeah. And like the addition of this part of the head here just makes her look fat.
Yeah.
And
why are we fat shaming Mothra right
we
now,
have
guys?
to, unfortunately. The two things I will say that I like about this design are I like the addition of like the little legs are good because they're not pure insect-like, so it keeps a thing I like about Mothra. I think the slit eyes are a nice feature, and this for the antennae is very good to look at. I do like that. Although the Mothra larva design is no. That's a no for me, Chief.
Okay, I didn't see this. Oh god, that looks way too much like Caterpie from Pokemon. I can't get with this.
Yeah, that's a no
For me. I think on its own, I'd say it's a good design for like a larva kaiju thing. I would say maybe it strays a little too far from what we know of like Mothra larva.
It would look fine for if this was like for like a children's book or something, but for like a comic version, like a graphic novel version of Mothra, like at least for whatever tone they're going for, I don't. Yeah, this doesn't quite work.
I'll tell you this much. There's one thing you could do that's actually pretty easy. You remove the antenna here. You make, instead of this bright orange, make her a dark brown with the spots remaining, or changing the color of the spots. And I think the design overall is like 10 times better.
Yeah, I would have said like the least I would have done is like gone with a more like earthy brown.
Yeah.
Like color.
You know what else this reminds me of? I just realized is Silky from Teen Titans. It Oh wait, no. There we go. Doesn't he look kind of? Doesn't the two designs kind of? Doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Kinda,
especially like right here. One sec. Let me pull him out. Like he looks kind of.
Yeah.
Kaisei Goji, in my opinion, is like a match between GMK Singular Point minus the Monsterverse Godzilla. I really like Mothra Gemini's design, and I like the idea of her being floofy. Like, I don't mind her being floofy, just tone it down a tad. I think someone asked about this being open or closed. Is this a closed debate today? Well, it's not really a debate, just going over a video. So debates have to be kind of set up in advance for people to come on. But if you want to join to talk about a discussion, the link's always in the Discord.
This is a reaction stream.
Literally, Kong electric powers in the original was Deus Ex Machina, so you can get a leg up against Godzilla since it was left over from the Frankenstein script. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
As well as he also gets like 3 power-ups essentially. And hello there, Haya's Godzilla Evolved. Or Haya Godzilla's Evolved.
Is that Sea Monster's brother or something?
So wait, would it be the E-Monster then? E-Monster Essays?
E-Monster Sessays.
E-Monster Sessays. E-Monsters Memes. A good old memes. But since we're about to start the video again, yeah, what is y'all's thoughts about the Kong domination of the Monsterverse? I think the dog is not too happy with that.
Well, I guess it depends on what the context of dominating is. Like in terms of him being a main character, he can be okay. Are we talking about in terms of him dominating in universe, or dominating in terms of being like the most prominent character?
Being the most prominent character, since I think that's what it's in reference to. The earlier comment where they're talking about like why people are having a lot of issues now is because Kong is just taking up so much screen time and like everything.
As far as like my thoughts on it, like if you ask me, like I wouldn't necessarily have much of a problem with it all that much. If the stories revolving around Kong that we've been getting, post Skull Island, considering that that's his most prominent appearance, was like tighter in terms of like storytelling wise. But like otherwise, I wouldn't really have that much of it. Like I honestly think like if the writing was tighter, like there wouldn't even be this much of discourse going on. Like people would just be like, oh hey, that was a really cool story, with Kong, kicking ass pretty much, and like they wouldn't really like. Obviously, you had some people who would be like, I wish Godzilla had a little more screen time here, but I think there would be less people paying that much mind to it if, let's just like, especially with GXK, like if the plot was significantly tighter, if like Kong being more prominent than Godzilla in the Monsterverse isn't necessarily the issue. It's just kind of the stories that are being done with them, and not even not even conceptually speaking, really. Like conceptually speaking, the stories revolve around Kong, are are solid. Like they could actually work. They could work pretty well as continuations, but the execution is certainly lacking enough to where this discourse is kind of happening in the first place.
Mm-hmm. But like, you could also, another thing too is the fact that Kong's gotten GBK, GXK, Return to Skull Island being an upcoming comic. He's in the Kong Survivor. The game is literally Kong Survivor. So
yeah, he's got Kingdom Kong, and there's
I'm not including Kingdom Kong because Godzilla Dominion did pop up around the same time as it.
Okay.
So there's that, and then there's also Hunted, which although it has both Godzilla and Kong, the main character or like the main antagonist of that story fights Kong, not Godzilla. And Godzilla, like all Godzilla's role in that comic is really just to set him up for where he appears in GXK. So it's like the only new stuff or like relevant stuff that like you'd have to see only in that comic is the Kong stuff.
Yeah. Personally, for me, I never really minded the Kong domination in the Monsterverse because more so at the point of when either GXK was coming out or had just come out. Like for me, I always saw it as it's fine since at the start of the Monsterverse, it was pretty Godzilla centered because at that point, Godzilla had 2014 King of the Monsters, so we had that set up as Godzilla's characterization, and then we had Kong Skull Island for him, and so having more Kong, I never really minded. I'm in the boat of I think that Kong stuff has been handled really well. If only just like a little bit better handling of the execution, but I think overall it's pretty solid. And with Godzilla stuff, while I agree it's pretty minimal, I do love a lot of what Godzilla does. And I would only wish for like more of it because I think it was done well.
Yeah, I know a lot of people don't agree with that as well.
Oh,
sorry, say
I'm right.
Welcome, Zimmy. A few comments I think were interesting to list. Was this one listed? Yeah, I just moved the stream up because I have some stuff I need to do after the stream as well. Hey Zim, I have a question. What do you consider a good adaptation of a topic like character design, like IDW's new author design that you people talk about right now, or a story in general? So I guess that's like I'll keep the question up. So what would I consider a good adaptation of a topic? I think that generally when you're dealing with the concept of adaptation, a lot of times what you are doing is you're taking a story from one medium and putting it in a new medium, and as a result you have to deal with the challenges that come from that. So book to film adaptations are the biggest example people can think of as being the most successful, with like game to film adaptations being some that are considered less successful overall. And I think what's important is capturing the essence of what makes that story unique and what people are drawn into for that story. And as a result, you have to zero in on that so that the people who were interested in the product from the beginning are going to appreciate your dedication to that topic when you put it into a new medium, and the people who are more invested in that new medium are then drawn to the product because it is in a format that they enjoy. I think with like characters and stuff, you can always put them in a whole lot of different scenarios. As a result, when you're adapting them from one story format to another, there's less to do since you're dealing mostly with a well-written story that revolves around that character. So like a Godzilla comic and a Godzilla movie and a Godzilla book are all adaptations, but as long as the story focuses on Godzilla's themes, then you really don't have too many issues to worry about. But when it comes to character design, I think that respecting things like a character's silhouettes, their colors are the most important thing, because if a person's going to like glance at your character and they're able to identify all of those things about it, that's what helps make a character iconic. And I think when you change too much about a character's like design, that ultimately breeds unfamiliarity, and it does lessen the iconic nature of a character. So looking at the new IDW Mothra design, it's not a good design, but it's not a bad adaptation or a bad like design adaptation of Mothra. It's just not one I'm fond of. if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And Lou's in the back. Hello, Lou.
Heyo.
Hello. I came to shit on the Monsterverse and chew gum, and I'm all out of peanuts. Coming up.
And you're all out of Monsterverse for a little bit too.
Yeah.
Mez also says Godzilla is a character too. Toho perfected the use of monsters. Character he is also called a character first in memos from Toho and by Monsterverse directors. Him being a big dinosaur shouldn't matter. Kaiju genre is above such things. They're more than a large animal, so that is indeed correct.
Yeah.
But let us continue.
It's because he's another franchise, and it's because I think people sometimes get insecure about like, well, which franchise is more popular and which do people consider better. There's no other explanation I can wrap my head around. I just don't understand it. It confuses me. Like, why are we willing to say that Mothra can kick Godzilla's ass, but Kong can? And the argument will be like, well, Kong's just a big gorilla. They have to give him power-ups. Well, Mothra's just a big moth. They have to give her power-ups too. Mothra from 1961 was so large that she could eat and kill the Showa Godzilla in a matter of seconds. And they scaled her down and weakened her, saying she's at the end of her lifespan so that Godzilla could beat her in a fight and there could be more drama. The same thing that fans are so upset about with Kong getting an upgrade so that Godzilla can go toe-to-toe with him is the same thing that Godzilla had to do to go toe-to-toe with Mothra. I find that super interesting.
Do we know that that's necessarily the case? Because I'm gonna keep it $150 with you, Chief. If they did a Godzilla versus Mothra movie and they had to use this version of Mothra, I bet that film would never come out because the amount of budget they'd have to put in to make a Mothra that's accurate in size.
Now I'm curious. Like, did he record? Now, like the some of the clips that he showed, like he's like wearing like different clothes as he's been in like other bits, like clips. Like, did he just?
I know D-Man does record. I think that's CC.
Yeah, he takes some days. Normally,
Yeah.
he does take his time to make videos.
Yeah, there's some days where he'll put on he'll record some things on his live stream and make a video with clips from the live stream. So yeah, that is the case. I don't know if that is still C. Sorry, C. But if we're just talking solely on the 1962 King Kong and Godzilla, Kong needed not only power-ups, but needed to nerf Godzilla because in King Kong versus Godzilla, Godzilla for some reason is explicitly weak to electricity, which allows Godzilla to be diverted from Tokyo, whereas Kong feeds on electricity several times, making his way into the city, and then needs another power-up from a random electrical storm in order for him to match Godzilla in size and non-size in power. And not only is he matching Godzilla in power, but he's also using an ability that Godzilla is explicitly weak to. So Kong needed several power-ups, and those power-ups also helping him so that Godzilla is given an extra weakness as well. Whereas even looking at the original Mothra, I'd say there's nothing explicit that would say that Mothra would be able to beat Showa Godzilla, outside of the fact that Mothra's just bigger.
To be fair, also like Godzilla explicitly being weak to electricity, like straight up contradicts 54. Like Mothra getting smaller, you know, if there are many Mothras, it doesn't actually contradict anything. Like it could be just a different Mothra. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't do something that bad.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that Mothra was given an extra power in the form of her like poison powder to combat Godzilla. So though Mothra got smaller, she also got a new power to contend with Godzilla, whereas Godzilla stayed pretty much the same from 64 to 54, 55, with 62 being the only exception. And Godzilla gets nerfed in that movie so that Kong is able to have a direct counter to him when he gets his extra power-ups.
Wouldn't the different Godzilla argument also apply in Lao's case? Just different Mothras?
Rationalize it out.
Oh, I mean, well, what did you say, Lao? That making it a different Mothra would just explain different weaknesses?
Yeah, that it could simply be a different Mothra, you know, like there because of the cycle of rebirth and death. This could be like the second one. Like, is it ever explained that it's exactly the same Mothra from the first original Mothra movie?
No, it's not. Not to mention the fact that like Infinite Island looks really different between the films, which you could argue is due to the the nuclear testing. that went on further on in the timeline, but there's a few other details that you'd have to account for as being different within the timeline. So it's easier to just say that it's a different Mothra. And hypothetically, there could be a series of events similar to the original Mothra film that happened in the Showa timeline.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is that although it's a different Mothra, it doesn't really contradict, because D-Man's point is that, well, they had to nerf Mothra so that Godzilla could fight her, when in reality, the only thing that's nerfed is her size, and she's also given a power-up, so that's a plus and a minus, so that could be evened out, whereas Kong got several power-ups, which we can just count as one, so he gets power-ups. He's also given a greater size, so that's another plus. And we can also say that the power that he's using is a direct weakness to Godzilla, whereas Godzilla is also given a direct nerf and explicit weakness to what Kong's powers are in this movie. So there's more things needing to buff up Kong than there is things for Mothra to get nerfed by in order for Godzilla to fight her. So
and even then, to be the devil's advocate, like Mothra doing the scales thing, like that mist thing she does. It's the first time she's actually fighting another monster. You could still technically say, like it's just something that she didn't really need to use against tanks and helicopters.
Or the heat ray gun either, yeah.
Exactly.
And then even if let's just steelman that point there, where if we're to say that, oh well, Mothra never needed it in the 61 film because she wasn't fighting another monster, then yes, it is true that Mothra had to get nerfed in size to fight Godzilla, but that still is one nerf Mothra needed, whereas Kong needed several buffs and Godzilla needed one nerf for that fight to be even.
Yeah, and even then you do have the, maneuverability constraints. Like how are you going to make such a big fucking thing and fit it in the studio? It's a huge thing that you have to make.
Yeah. And if we're going down this logic train, King Ghidorah is supposed to be 100 meters in the Showa timeline, and in reality, he's not much bigger than Godzilla. So, just for the constraints of filming, they need to make a reasonably sized Ghidorah suit that's bigger than Godzilla, but not so big that he's actually twice Godzilla's size.
Yeah.
So, anyone else?
They had to have it to be.
Oh no, go see.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say if anyone wants to add anything else before I continue the video again.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I just wanted to add, the reason why they made Ghidorah.
There's a delay. That's even funnier. Go. I'll stop.
Okay, that's weird. Ghidorah, the way that he was kind of done, the way the suit was put together, being not too much bigger than Godzilla, or if not the same size. I think it's just to make it manageable for the crew to work with, when for filming, that could be why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Alice coming in clutch always in the chat. Yeah, KOTM made a video about this. Yes, that is quite correct. KOTM did make a video talking about how size doesn't always matter in a fight, especially with fictional characters.
Size does matter. And the Godzilla 98 size does matter. I just said that.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear the size does matter. I just heard size and then matter, and I was like, what?
The end of her lifespan so that Godzilla could beat her in a fight and there could be more drama. The same thing that fans are so upset about with Kong getting an upgrade so that Godzilla can go toe-to-toe with him is the same thing that Godzilla had to do to go toe-to-toe with Mothra. I find that super interesting. Titanosaurus is like a dinosaur with a wind tail. I don't understand, man. I don't get it. I don't get why you'd be more concerned about Godzilla getting beaten up by King Kong than you would by Kumonga. You're totally cool to let Godzilla get his ass whooped by Kumonga or Kamacuras. Is it just because it's a Toho monster? It's so weird to me. I don't get it. I agree, King Kong. They just hate Kong. At the end of the day, they just hate Kong. Godzilla's just a big lizard with power-ups. Thank you, Chowders. Thank you. Okay, dude, you are so right. You just triggered the Winter Soldier in me. So I have seen an uproar in fans over the last few years genuinely wanting Zilla in the Monsterverse because, of course, Godzilla Rulers of Earth comic book came out, and in many ways it redeemed and revitalized the potential of the character of Zilla. All of the sudden, Zilla became really cool, and we got to see a scenario in which Zilla got to fight Godzilla, and they weren't equals, but they weren't that unmatched either. And it was awesome. And I have seen fans genuinely wanting Godzilla to take on Zilla in an upcoming Monsterverse movie. Of course, we all understand that Zilla would lose the fight. The same way that I don't think that there was many King Kong fans, including myself, and you can go back and watch videos as far back as 2015. I'm talking about how Godzilla's going to win the fight in Godzilla versus Kong, although I think I would prefer it if Kong won. I don't think there was many.
Anytime I hear someone say I wish Kong won the fight in Godzilla versus Kong, I just want to ask why, because I've never heard any good reasons as to why, other than it's a fun underdog story, which in that case, that has been done to death for years at this point. I really don't want to see another underdog story. That's, if people are going to complain about, oh, Godzilla films can be really cliche, then why suppose a cliche story as your as like a solution to a Godzilla versus Kong movie?
Well, I know for me, when it came to watching GVK and JXK, I was on Team Godzilla for the most part, but I always tended to root for Kong as well. Like the story like compelled me in a way to where I also did root for Kong. So part of me does also wish that Kong had a few good. I'm on the side of Godzilla. Kong has like 2 good wins in the overall amount of times we see him fight, because he did knock out Godzilla in New Empire, so that's a win in my book, and I think in the official books it should be as well. But I do always tend to root for Kong more than more than
you root for
like,
Godzilla.
I guess so, but part of me knows that inevitability, he will inevitably win.
Inevitable.
Godzilla.
Yeah.
Since I'm ultimately a slave to my chat, Black asks how the story compelled him to root for Kong.
Well, I mean, it's much like Zim said, it's an underdog story, and I wouldn't call it like. I would say it's more due to like the trope of the underdog story. I think Kong's story was written well in a way to where I rooted for him because of his story of trying to find belonging, and also his personality of like not backing down. Because I always saw like the Kong versus Godzilla dynamic in the Monsterverse, at least, as a thing of as Kong's pride versus like Godzilla's hate, and in a sense. And I think there's other words I can also use to describe the dynamic, but that was one that I always went with, because like I said, Kong is just a character that doesn't back down, and in every fight he is always he's never the one to like back down or give up. He will keep fighting till his last breath, which is what we saw in all the fights.
I know for me as a fan of these movies, I'm like, I want Godzilla to win. But if you were to ask me as someone who's like only watching Godzilla versus Kong, I would say I'm rooting for Kong, not necessarily for him to win, because Godzilla versus Kong just makes Godzilla seem overly petty with how he treats Kong, and it almost costs him his life. So like I root for Kong in certain cases, but like I'm always gonna root for Godzilla.
Yeah, like it's kind of like you want him to win, but not necessarily in the fighting sense. You want him just to, like his character, like his purpose. You want it to succeed, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I'm not saying necessarily D-Man is like this, but I do know that I have seen certain YouTubers be like, oh, especially when Godzilla versus Kong was coming out. I think Corey I forget his channel's name, but I know Corey's like part of the title name. But I remember in one of his videos, he was like, oh, there's people who are Team Godzilla and Team I just want this to be a good movie. But the story he proposed was that Godzilla gets killed by Kong. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's strange, but I guess it's showing the bias.
Yeah, like
I'm not taking any sides, but I want Godzilla to win.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like that is the most like it's essentially a non-answer as well as like an omission of bias to begin with, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like I mean, I pretty much was Team Godzilla, but I also wanted to at least like when I was seeing GVK, like I was Team Godzilla pretty much for definitely, but I didn't want it to be like but I also wanted to have it where Kong wasn't just instantly losing every time he was fighting Godzilla, like which I mean,
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it has to be compelling, like just it's like those stupid ass Jurassic Park fans that just like get hard for the T-Rex every fucking time. And so every time you see like a fun animation, the T-Rex just one shots everything. Like there's no actual fight, there's no tension, there's no stakes. It's just some fan like jacking off because their favorite character won a fight. I never wanted it to be like that with GBK, and that's the good thing about it because like as soon as they got in the melee fight, I feel like Kong just was like a little bit shitting on Godzilla for one round, and then
Mhm.
of course when he gets a little bit far and Godzilla can use the atomic breath, like everything goes wrong. But even
I,
in GFK, like I mean, I don't know why no one acknowledges that, but like if Kong wanted to have killed Godzilla, I think he could have done it. Like I think in GXK he just he didn't want to do it, but that's why Godzilla's fine. But like once he goes unconscious, King Kong just grabs his face on like that's his thing. He could have won that one.
Yeah. Like I think that also generally, I think GXK and GVK are kind of telling us. I don't think that a lot of people are able to animate a good Godzilla versus Kong fight. There's that one YouTuber. Does anyone remember his name off the top of their heads? He did a Godzilla versus Kong fan animation long before GVK come out, but
Yeah,
it was
it was
after
like a flash animation or something like
it,
that, right?
it was like it wasn't a flash animation, but like it was a little bit higher quality than a flash animation. But like I remember like it was
Zim
really
out
fucking,
animation.
what was that?
I think that's his name. Zim out.
Yeah,
Or
there's something
Zim out.
like that. Like I
Was it
say that
you?
that was like one of the best examples I can think of a compelling back and forth Godzilla versus Kong fight where it doesn't make Godzilla only spam his atomic breath and can't do anything in close range, and it also allows Kong to be creative and not just completely dominate that what's it call it that the fight up close, but also I think it also makes Kong lose, but in a way that's compelling for both Kong fans and Godzilla fans, and it doesn't make Godzilla's win an inevitable stomp.
Yeah,
Like I
Godzilla
said right
losing to
here,
Mario.
Zim out animations. Yeah, he's another Zim. What can I say? Zim's just pumping out good content after good content. What can I say?
Invader Zims.
The
Invader.
Zims,
Yeah.
the Zim army. I need Messo's comment before we go back into this. I remember there was a YouTuber who made who made like reviews or video essays. He was rooting for Kong so hard he pretty much retired after Godzilla versus Kong. Oof! When you're really banking on a movie's outcome, and then he's like, "Bro, I'm done. This is no longer peak cinema."
Many people who actually thought Kong was going to win the fight. But it's weird to me that people are like more chill with Zilla taking on Godzilla and potentially being an equal in a match with him than they are with Kong. Zilla's just a big lizard. If Kong's just a big gorilla, Zilla's just a big lizard. And yeah, Godzilla's just a big lizard with power-ups. And you give they're like, well,
power-ups and powers are two different things, but I think he obviously means a big lizard with powers, but that would also technically make Zilla a better opponent for Kong then, because since Zilla doesn't have any powers, Kong doesn't have any powers, it makes it a fun back and forth between the two.
Well, even then, like Zilla, like if we're just going off of like the origins of like '98, like he has the whole thing where he just roars and then like a cloud of
Yeah, the
fire
power breath.
goes through.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's so even then he like, and plus isn't he like more agile anyways?
Yeah, well, I like a lot of people there's certain memes that people have about certain kaijus when it comes to power scaling them. Like there's the meme that Zilla is just so fast that no monster would actually be able to tag him, but if you like actually power scale him properly, Zilla gets tagged by a lot of monsters. And people like to assume because Kong is a gorilla and gorillas are big, strong in real life, that Kong is just the strongest monster and no one can beat him in a fist fight. But if you actually look at the feats of monsters, a lot of monsters can out like muscle Kong. But
It's not even that. It's if you look at real life, like sometimes in YouTube you see this, who will win, like a gorilla or a bear, and people legit fucking think that a fucking gorilla could beat a bear. So like legendary Godzilla specifically, he is actually based on a bear
mhm.
for a huge part of his
A
like.
lot of his fighting style is based on bears, yeah. But yeah, that's another thing too. And I think that actually I'd have to do more research on this, but I think because of the success King Kong had and a lot of like gorilla monsters appearing after Kong, it's led to a very deep-seated idea in popular culture that gorillas are just these massive, like muscle-bound tanks that could take on almost any other animal. But if you look at them in their natural habitat, gorillas get like mopped by like leopards, which are like not even half their size.
Yeah, like it does.
Mm.
Yeah, like if Zilla could pretty much be potentially like that could be like a similar case if we're having Kong pitted against Zilla, except like where gorilla versus a leopard. If the leopard like shoots nuclear fire.
Mm-hmm. As well as I don't even think people are even saying that they want to see Zilla appear to have a big like a even fight against Godzilla. I think a lot of people are asking for Zilla to appear so that he can get mollywopped by Godzilla again. Like I think it's like a 50-50 in that case, but like the framing of it is being like, oh, people want Zilla in the Monsterverse so they can be like an equal to Godzilla. Like the most common things I've seen is that people like, oh, I want Zilla in so that he can get beat up by Godzilla again, or I want Zilla as like a subspecies of Godzilla because they're Spec Evo brain rotted.
Yeah, like
I feel like Zilla would work more as like a Hollow Earth monster, sort of like the Warbats, and probably would work better against Kong than Godzilla, since Godzilla would basically instantly destroy him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's like the same thing as like even for a Godzilla monster, Ebra fits better as a King Kong villain than he does a Godzilla villain, because the big thing that you can say about Ebra is that Ebra's whole domain is the ocean, where Kong isn't going to be able to swim as well in comparison to a creature adapted to it. So it's a land and sea type of dynamic between the two. Whereas when you pit Ebra against Godzilla, even if Ebra is pretty powerful, Godzilla is also adapted for ocean life. So then it's less of monsters with totally different specialties fighting against each other, and Godzilla fighting against the monster that he just outclasses, which even in Ebra Horror of the Deep, he does outclass Ebra in both of his fights, and interestingly enough is one of the few monsters that Godzilla just kind of lets leave.
Yeah, like I mean, especially when you take into account that Ebra Horror of the Deep was even supposed to be initially a Kong movie to begin with.
Yeah, exactly.
Kong gets a new power anytime he has to fight Godzilla. Godzilla gets a new power every other movie. Godzilla goes burning mode in King of the Monsters. That's not something he could do in 2014. In New Empire, he can evolve himself into a hyper state, which is something he wasn't able to do before. They're both dumb, silly.
He's about to do the dumbs. It's
I hate this argument. I hate it.
They're dumb, silly monsters that made for children, guys. But I do like burning Godzilla. I don't like this.
They make King Kong like basically 100 times the size he was in the original film in like the Monsterverse, and then they in like the show era they do the similar thing, and then they give him electric powers. That's a lot different than making Mothra like around half the size and then adding like the dust and stuff like that. It's completely different from that.
Yeah, like what's stopping somebody from countering this guy's D-Man's point by saying, "Oh, well, Kong just they just give him like a big stupid axe in one movie, and then they give him a big stupid beast club in the next movie just so he can fight Godzilla." It's like,
mm-hmm. The problem also is how he gets the fucking weapons. Like, remember, guys, when we first saw the axe, and we were like, "Oh, what the hell is he going to do to get the axe?" And then it's like, no, it's there. Like on the floor, he picks it up.
Yeah.
And then it's like the beast glove, like, like they made it for him. Like he's not actually like making the weapons himself even.
Yeah. Like not to mention the fact that at least with like, for example, burning Godzilla had to lose something to gain his burning form. And in the hyper evolved state, Godzilla also had to go out of his way to gain the energy himself and then fight Tiamat to then get his evolved form. But another thing too is that every time Kong gets powers, the Beast Glove probably to a lesser extent, although inadvertently it still does. His power-ups are always explicitly designed in a way to counter whatever the monster has. So Kong in 62 gets electrical powers that specifically counter Godzilla's new weakness to electricity he gets in that one film. And then in Godzilla vs. Kong, he gets an axe made from a Godzilla fin to specifically block Godzilla's atomic breath. And then the Beast Glove is explicitly shown to heal his frostbite and block Shima's ice breath.
For some reason.
For some reason. Exactly.
For some reason, exactly, yeah.
The axe made more sense because it was Godzilla's spike, but
Yeah, like, I mean, the logistics of how Kong is able to get the battle axe versus how he gets the Beast Club, it's like at least with the battle axe, it's like as ultra convenient as that was, like, considering that the film did establish that there were like more Kong species living in the Hollow Earth that all either died off or for some reason, it's at least feasible somewhat, even if, again, ultra convenient for Kong to be able to find a battle axe like that just lying around. Whereas the Beast Glove, the legit, like the film just literally fucks with time and space just so that Kong could be able to get the Beast Glove in time before he dies of frostbite. Like, I mean,
I think,
among other things.
I think even now we're actually unrailing the story of the next Monsterverse film, where the reason why the other Kongs died was because they died to Titan leopards. So now Kong with the other gorilla apes must fight against the evil Titan leopard menace in order to the Hollow Earth.
If you play Godzilla Kong Titan Chasers, they have like big Jaguar type Titans there. So
were they the same ones that were in Godzilla X Kong the Hunted, or are those different ones? Because I haven't played Titan.
Different ones, because they're like literally giant Black Panthers with like
blue.
Oh my god!
If I ever play that game and I get one of those things and it's a giant Black Panther, I will scream Wakanda forever anytime I'm in public playing that game. It's like Wakanda forever! Ibombe!
Join my alliance, Zim. Join my alliance.
Oh wait, there's like clans and stuff in that game?
Yeah, it's really fun. Like the other day, I got into this big fucking war, and it was like Game of Thrones mixed with like the Magnificent Seven and Suicide Squad, all in one. It was an exciting fucking Sunday.
I'll say this: like, I love Godzilla Battle Line, but if the game is actually good, I'm gonna be very upset with myself because I'm like, that's another thing that's gonna distract any attention I have. But let's keep going.
Needs it to for the next movie, which I do think is an issue. I do think that they need to establish a better set of rules for these guys, but of course they're going to give Kong some power-ups for the next film because they're trying to keep progressing the fights and to make them more interesting and more dynamic and whatever.
Stop back now.
Silly to me. I feel like part of the debate comes from deeply rooted lore. Mothra is like this divine god from the first movie, whereas Kong is more of a gigantic ape that could exist in real life. That very well could be. Godzilla gets an upgrade in like every Monsterverse movie. I agree. If Godzilla gets an upgrade every Monsterverse movie, I think Kong can too. Here's my opinion, is that a big issue is Godzilla gets upgrades that typically come from something he does, right? Or something that happens to him. Does this make sense? Like Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. Godzilla is struck by lightning, which then gives him the ability to magnetize at the end of the movie, as ridiculous as that is. In the Monsterverse, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla is hit with a nuke and supercharged. Which now that I'm thinking of it, why does the nuke that hits him and supercharges him, that's gonna kill him. That supercharges him to the point where he's going to explode and die, but then in New Empire, he slurps up a ton of radiation and actually enters an energized state, which is even stronger than his King of the Monsters supercharged state, but it won't kill him. I've actually never thought about that before.
I think it's actually a pretty easy way to explain that, because in King of the Monsters, they state that he's trying to regain his energy over like several years to heal himself, whereas the nuke does it way too quickly, whereas in New Empire's case, Godzilla is doing it explicitly of his own volition, so he would know what his limits are and what not to do. So
I mean, at least there's that.
But to be fair, also like in King of the Monsters, he doesn't boil the water, you know. And in but what I was going to say is that Demon is right, but it's because of simply it's bad writing, because it's a Wingard movie, you know, like so. Everything that came before it can go fuck itself because Wingard.
It's Wingard.
I would
Wingard slop.
Yeah, I would disagree because sorry to go on a tangent of defending GXK, but considering we see, again, like Zim said, it's comparing receiving all that energy at once versus Godzilla gradually gaining it. We see that if it ultimately leads to a burning mode, then it's acting the same way. We see both in GXK and in King of the Monsters that it results in Godzilla heating up. And so because he's getting it more gradually in GXK, and he's making his way towards a place where he's going to evolve his body, it makes sense that he's going to be able to handle that power more, since that was the purpose of evolving.
Yeah, I'd agree with that sentiment too. Like, I think that the context around both of those scenes and the power-ups received are different, even though they appear to have similar results.
Well, I'd say it's a similar thing with the nuclear explosion. It was like all completely at once, where him absorbing like the nuclear reactor was through his like natural absorbing process.
Mm-hmm.
It's like completely different, I think.
I think I guess a physical example would be like, I bet if someone injected you with adrenaline, your body's going to react very differently to that being given to you versus your body naturally processing it yourself because of the actions that you're taking. Although probably not the best one-to-one comparison, but like, again, the nuke is forced on him while he's gathering the energy himself.
King of the Monsters supercharged.
But also, like, just to be fair, like, for example, the nuke is like 1 second you're like almost dead, and the next one is like boom. Like, I get that, but for example, when he's in France, like, how long has he been there? You know, because it seems like he arrived, he started like sucking the shit out of the place, and it was like maybe what, like a couple of minutes, and again, then he's like doing the polls and all that. So like, mm, uh, I don't know if it's that much of a difference, but again, I just think it's Wingard. Then the
Being
thing, but
Wingard.
even if it's Wingard, like Demon, the way I said is still right, because the filmmaker is still giving Godzilla, you know, like inconsistent abilities.
Yeah, I mean, even if he's not literally melting concrete, melting everything around him like he was at the end of Cautum in his burning mode, the fact that he's leaving like a trail of like hellfire and brimstone in his like supercharged mode, like when we see him in Cadiz, Spain, like that should be like if him in burning mode when he's like barely in control of it, you know, was enough to kill Ghidorah, a more controlled version of burning mode, as we see in GXK, should be enough to kill Scar King. Objectively speaking, that I'm not even. It's like it. There you go.
Yeah,
I would say that like the only another wrench that gets thrown is the whole evolved state where it doesn't really do anything. And
Exactly.
Pointless design change.
Yeah, it's pointless. It really is. Like, even if like they honestly could have just had the design, just like if he does do the energized thing, it could have just done it where like, oh, like him like having like control for some reason of like sucking up all that radiation, like it alters his spines a little, like somewhat. Like they could have just done that as opposed to.
I would disagree. Just considering the fact in the context of what we see, everything Godzilla does is associated with regulating his heat. And I would say, sure, with regards to beating Scar King specifically, the energized state should be enough. But I think that it probably isn't enough to beat Shimo, because the evolved state is specifically designed to regulate his heat, since we see that when Shimo freezes him, he uses his heat regulation to break out of the ice and such.
Well, here's the thing. If he does this whole explosion thing and it wipes out Scar King and his goons, it could also potentially destroy the crystal that controls Shimo. And so he wouldn't even have to worry about killing Shimo then.
Another thing as well is that the supercharged state could also emit a pulse as well, so Godzilla could still control his heat there. But another more damning thing is the fact that Godzilla had fought Scar King in the ancient past, and at least the cave painting that you see Scar King and Godzilla on, Scar King has the crystal Fluby Baduba, so it would imply that he had harness Shimo's power beforehand, even though they say that after he was in prison he found the crystal, which in that case is like either the visuals not matching the intents or the other way around. But I would still say that generally, at least looking at what we see in the film, the burning form is still the strongest form that Godzilla has had in comparison to like even the evolved state with like the amount of destructive force Godzilla can muster.
Yep.
I would
Yeah, I
agree.
agree with that.
Although I would further say the burning mode, as strong as it is, it's a power that without Mothra's help would have killed him. And the evolved state is essentially a way for him to maintain that state in life.
So is the energized state.
Yeah, I would say
I
that's so does the energized state. Yeah.
I always had a problem with people saying, it will have killed him. Like, we as Godzilla fans know that normally burning means, like he's going to explode and all of that. But in the movie, do they say that he's going to die? Like, how do we actually know for a fact that Mothra, like, was the difference between life and death? Like, we know it as fans by osmosis and all of that, and Wing are saying it, but like in the movie, there's no proof of it. To be fair.
Well, the one thing I will say is that if we were to take the film at face value, the characters believe that he's going to explode. When Ghidorah drops him, we see him cause a micro explosion when he hits the ground, and Mothra's sacrifice causes there to be a physical change. So I'd say there's enough context clues for the sentiment that is verbally stated by the characters to the audience to make that sentiment believable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
doesn't,
Mothra was kind of like after Ghidorah kind of dropped Godzilla, from the sky. The explosion kind of happened, and it may have just like knocked Godzilla to the point where he was like pretty much just about on death's door, like all over again. And so Mothra just kind of was like another adrenaline boost.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
use-
like Mothra's energy like turns Godzilla red right as soon as it touches him, right?
it does. Yeah.
Yes. Yep, it does.
To use Minecraft Worlds, his famous quote, "It looks like whatever Serizawa did to Godzilla worked a little too well." So there's Minecraft's little cameo for the video, guys.
Kill him? I've actually never thought about that before, but that is kind of a weird plot hole. But anyways, Godzilla is hit with a nuke, it supercharges him, and then Mothra allows him a way to vent his radiation, which lets him go burning mode. New Empire, again, he like slurps up the radiation, which it allows him his energized state, and then he kills Tiamat and absorbs her energy from her lair. I don't know why that doesn't kill him after the rules established in King of the Monsters, but it evolves him into the next state. The difference is Godzilla, things happen to him. Kong is given things. He just stumbles upon the axe. He's handed the beast glove when he's hurt. And so I think it makes it so that when Kong gets a power up, it doesn't feel earned. And so fans get upset because it's like, well, Kong could never take on Godzilla without this thing that he just happens to discover a Godzilla killer axe, an axe designed to fight his current opponent. He just happens to find it right before going to another fight with him. He's given a beast glove that can just so happen to energize him and also deflect freeze breath. Whereas Godzilla, it's a little bit more active, although I think you could put a similar spin. Godzilla just happens to get struck by lightning. In Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, they just so happen to nuke Godzilla and energize, although that one's like baked into the plot. But you see what I'm saying? Like,
besides Godzilla getting a new power in Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, can anyone really name other examples besides flying that Godzilla gained a new power up randomly in the Showa series? Because it doesn't happen as much as people will say it does in the Showa series, for example.
No, it doesn't really happen aside from the lightning in Mechagodzilla. That's
it.
I mean, you have the red atomic breath from Godzilla vs Mechagodzilla 2.
No, we're talking about the Showa series specifically.
Oh, Showa series.
Yeah, because
I don't think there is. No.
Yeah, because if we're gonna go through everything, starting with King Kong versus Godzilla, Godzilla just so happens to now be weak to electricity, and then you go through Mothra, Ghidorah, Astro Monster, Sea Monster, Son of Godzilla, Destroy All Monsters. Nothing really except for the fact that Godzilla so happens to be weak to mind control. But again, happens in 2 films at that point. I'm like, okay, sure. All monsters attack. Nothing really happens there. Godzilla in Godzilla vs. Hedorah uses his beam to fly, which is there really any other instance in the Showa series where Godzilla would have had a need to chase after another monster in that same manner?
Yeah,
Yes.
What would those
Yeah,
be?
and also
Ghidorah
it's
flying
like,
away and lots of other monsters flying away after they lose.
but also it's one of the
Well,
choices.
what other monsters fled before Hedorah? Because Gigan
You have
and Megalon,
Ghidorah, you have
Rodan.
Ghidorah in basically every film kind of flying away.
We
and
only have
God,
Ghidorah
that, that
fight.
ability could be pretty useful when
You
he's
only
trying to
have-
escape the explode. Hold on, that ability could be pretty useful when he's escaping the exploding island and versus the sea monster.
Iberia.
Okay, so in this case, so in Ghidorah's case, do you think that Godzilla is able to survive the vacuum of space in that case? Because Ghidorah flees and Godzilla still has Rodan and Mothra there, so I don't think there's any reason for Godzilla to explicitly go out of his way to kill Ghidorah in that case if he knows that he can beat him with the two monsters he has. Same thing could apply for Astro Monster as well, since both Godzilla and Rodan survived that. And in Abira's case, I really don't believe that Godzilla like actually had too much to worry about in terms of that nuke going off, since Godzilla can tank nukes already, and he killed all the Kamacuras are dead. Kamunga's dead. They finished the job on Ghidorah, and he was already able to tag Gigan out of the sky in Gigan, and he's already beaten Gigan in Godzilla vs. Megalon, so there's no reason to really chase after Megalon or Gigan, two monsters he knows he can beat. Killed Mechagodzilla, and beat Titanosaurus, and beat Mechagodzilla.
I'm pretty sure in the Destroy All Monsters, didn't they have that red flying thing? That
The Fire Dragon?
Yeah.
That Godzilla also tagged with his atomic breath.
Well, he
And
didn't chase after it, though.
he didn't chase after it, but the SY3 was able to beat it since Godzilla was going for the Keeluk base. So I would say the Keeluk base.
Spaceship as well.
Yeah, it's just a spaceship too. We don't know if Godzilla knows that, but I would say that going after.
Well, he was obviously trying to attack it from what.
Yeah, he's shown to attack it, yes, but actually, especially, I'd say definitely if the options are to just go after the home base and destroy like the remaining Keeloks on Earth and then deal with the Fire Dragon later, it would be a lot easier to do that instead of trying to just tag one ship and then hopefully make sure the Keeloks don't escape. Not to mention the SY3 appearing almost like right after that battle makes Godzilla trying to chase after it pretty redundant. But going into abilities, like added abilities, the Heisei series does do that in the case of starting with Biollante, because we don't necessarily know how Godzilla gains the ability to use the nuclear pulse, although we can just say that he's able to push out his atomic powers in a different form, which is still using the same ability, just in a different format, where instead of firing at something from long range, he's firing at something from close range. And he also does that again in essentially all the films, really, except for like a few exceptions.
Well, I think the films present the nuclear pulse basically as like, if he can't use his atomic breath or he has too much energy overloaded, he like shoots out this nuclear pulse.
Yeah, I always assumed that it wasn't necessarily energy overload, but him using it differently, because when he gets coiled up by Biollante, the breath pushes backwards, and then you see the explosion come out from his body. So
Yeah,
I always assumed it was a different.
I would say that's sort of like a kickback or something, like his atomic breath can't come out of his mouth, so the energy like comes out of his whole body.
Yeah,
sort of like in
that's
Destroyer too.
Yeah,
That's
it also
believable as
happened.
well in King Ghidorah.
Yeah,
like, I
that's
think
what I
this
was
is
to
shown
say.
in this is shown in like Destroyer, where like he's shooting the atomic breath out of his mouth randomly, and then he's like nuclear pulses and stuff because he can't shoot it out quick enough. It's sort of like that.
To also add to your theory as well, because I think he used the nuclear pulse to break out of Mothra's prism, because his atomic breath kept bouncing around the prism, and then he uses the nuclear pulse, which breaks the prism and causes Mothra to get thrown back. And I think he used it against Space Godzilla as well, I think.
I think the stream lagged for me. Wait a second. Sorry.
No, I said like I think he also used it on Space Godzilla as well before he used the his spiral ray.
He didn't use the nuclear pulse, I don't think, in Space Godzilla.
Doesn't? I'm curious.
He uses it right before shooting the red atomic breath, I think, but he doesn't use it.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Well, he also uses in King Ghidorah when he's being choked.
That
we
did bring up.
Yeah.
And then, well, Mothra one, I think it was more like his atomic breath couldn't fully, like be released because of the Mothra was reflecting and stuff.
Well, I'd say then that's the same philosophy as with Biolante's coiling him and King Ghidorah also like choking him out. Like any way that Godzilla can't release his breath normally, it's expelled in that form.
Yeah.
But I've always like if there's one thing when it comes to Godzilla's abilities, the atomic breath, nuclear pulse, I'm fine with those in terms of like abilities that you can use. And I think that anytime Godzilla gets a new ability, it should always be revolved or like centered around what his atomic breath can do, like an evolution of that. So like you could say another ability he gains is in Godzilla 2000 when he heats up his entire body for that like extra powerful atomic breath. I think that's interesting as an idea.
The
I like
Space Godzilla presented the idea that Godzilla could like shoot electricity out of his hands and stuff like that too.
What was that?
The Space Godzilla presented the idea that Godzilla could shoot like electricity when he punches and stuff like that.
Is it like explicitly electricity? I always assumed that it was like his like whatever Godzilla's nuclear energy is, that it's expelling in a blue format, whereas Space Godzilla, when he does it, it's red. So it's like an ability that Godzilla just naturally has.
Well, it's a similar thing, sort of like but they presented it like when Mechagodzilla shot him in the chest, and then he resent the energy back into Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, so like energy manipulation in that case, yeah.
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 Which makes sense since they present him as like a nuclear reactor. You could like, and he regulates his body and stuff like that. So.
Mm-hmm.
Laser eyes.
I think you can diminish Godzilla's accomplishments the same way you can diminish Kong's. I just think it's more obvious that Kong has those issues.
For affordable home and style stay.
Affordable housing? Don't you lie to me. That doesn't exist. Don't you lie to me. In this economy, in this state?
Do you think I'm like 45?
Do you think I'm 45 with like 2 oceanfront mansions already?
we should all pitch in and do a Godzilla tuber house.
A Godzilla streamer house. Oh my goodness.
Oh Lord.
The real life Godzilla gang.
Who just so happens to kill herself to allow Godzilla to vent his radiation. She's trying to block Ghidorah's gravity beams, but it just so happens to allow Godzilla to vent his radiation rather than him dying. That's convenient, that it solves the problem the exact way and allows him to kill Ghidorah. That's rather convenient. Or how about...
Okay, we've established multiple times why burning Godzilla actually kind of makes sense in context and how that actually goes about it.
Mm-hmm.
Himself
very
and
nice.
Happens to revive the brain in Godzilla's stomach to allow him to continue fighting Mechagodzilla in 1993. I think you can.
Does anyone want to address the Heisei arguments? Because there's also a pretty easy answer as to why that works as well.
I really like Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2. It's my favorite Heisei movie.
Wait, which arguments?
The argument that it's convenient that Rodan was able to heal Godzilla's second brain.
I mean, that you can,
agree with that.
like dissolve into, like the will of God. Yeah, no, I 100% think that's convenient. I don't think
it is convenient, but to me, it doesn't take me out of the plot. One because it allows for the fight to continue, and it's pretty damn cool. And 2, these are fictional creatures, so you have a certain amount of leeway towards them, even if there is a basis.
Well, I think it's convenient
especially,
in the way that
Let me finish my point.
Oh, sure.
Especially with what the Heisei era has established up to this point. Rodan sacrificing himself is pretty tame by comparison to, time travel, magic, and genetic tampering with souls.
Yeah, but for example, like the fact that the Heisei series has some stupid shit doesn't justify less stupid shit happening just because there's something stupider. I always thought that Rodan just like dissolving into plot armor was stupid. Like straight up.
I agree with the idea of that. However, I think the Heisei era kind of presents this idea that like Godzilla is basically like inevitable and stuff. I think that's presented in like Godzilla 1984 with the atomic bomb, lightning hitting him after he dies. King Ghidorah having the Godzilla source be revived from the nuclear submarine and stuff like that. And many of the other things that are in these films. So I don't think it's as much as like plot armor or plot device, but basically something that's ingrained in what this character of Godzilla is presented to be.
As well as I'd
So
also say that, like, too, if you really think about it, like, Godzilla doesn't just revive because of the, like, lightning. He revives because of the radiation that's also coming down because of the bomb exploding. And in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2's case, there's already a connection established between Godzillasaurs and Rodan species, and Rodan is also mutated by radiation, just like Godzilla. And as a result, we do know that these monsters can disseminate their energy in these forms. And I think Rodan's also, his power is allowing him to resurrect into fire Rodans because of the psychic plants, but also because of the excess radiation that was left there after his fight with Godzilla. So it makes enough sense that Godzilla would be able to be revived by Rodan given everything that we see in the film.
Well, I mean, it does make sense, but it is convenient in the way that he lands on top of Godzilla in that certain way after being like sort of killed by Mechagodzilla in the previous scenes.
Yeah.
But,
Is it convenient? Yes.
It makes sense because the film presents Rodan as I believe they say in the film that Rodan is created by the nuclear waste that is on the island.
They do, yeah.
I
And
mean, but still, there's no way you can convince me ever that an animal dying immediately disintegrates by the weight of the holy pigeon or something like that. Like, sorry.
well, I mean, that is
Well,
presented in these films, like Space Godzilla dying, Biollante dying, Godzilla dying in the end of the film. They all
The only one that
self-destruct.
The only one that doesn't really self-destruct in any way, because Batra kind of does it too. The only one that doesn't really self-destruct is King Ghidorah, and
well, it's never made clear that King Ghidorah actually died in the film.
Well, Ghidorah was still alive to some degree because they even state that in the film. That Ghidorah was
100 years underwater and King Ghidorah is still alive.
In the sea waters of Japan, that by no means would ever get to a point where he could be consistently cryogenically frozen for 200 years.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. There are a myriad of problems that go on with that movie, but we can talk about that later.
The one thing I'll say is that, like, again, even if we were to say that, oh, it's convenient that Godzilla gets these things happening to them, they will never be as convenient as the first time these characters fight, that Godzilla gets an explicit nerf to himself versus something we saw him previously be able to shrug off, and Kong get a power up from the only thing that Godzilla is weak to, and not only get that power up once, but 3 whole times.
Yeah. Also, pardon any background noise on my end. That's my roommate.
Okay.
It also just doesn't really make sense that Kong has these electrical powers, since it at least makes more sense because Godzilla has like radiation breath, but Kong wasn't shown in any of the previous films or really any film to have any unnatural abilities.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
When you know the behind the scenes, it explains itself, but in universe, it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's literally the same thing that happened to Godzilla later. So it's funny because King Kong replaced Frankenstein, then Godzilla replaced King Kong in the other movie, and both of them were, using electrical powers. That's why in the versus Sea Monster, there's a thunder that comes down on Godzilla and wakes him up. Yeah.
That's why there's a reason I will forever state that the axe is the most appropriate weapon that Kong has ever used in any of his crossovers with Godzilla, because is the most fitting weapon that he's used. 1, because it's an ape, so tool use, and 2, because it actually makes cultural sense and could be, and in a way is kind of established by this take on Kong. It's symbolic of Kong's familial origins and how far he's come in his journey.
I think it's easier to point it out with Kong. Oh, Kong just so happens to get struck by lightning, giving him lightning powers for the final fight of King Kong versus Godzilla right when he needs it. He just happens to find an axe right when he needs it. He just happens to be given the Beast Club right when he needs it. I think it is easier to do that with Kong. And maybe that's why fans are less receptive to Kong getting power-ups, whereas if Kong went on like a journey to craft the axe himself, it would be a little more satisfying. You know what fans have never complained about? Never one time. Kong gets thrown into the ship rapidly chains, he's breaking out. It's this epic scene. He's pulling the chains, they're snapping. All of a sudden, one gets stuck. He looks over, he sees the propeller. He then uses the propeller in the fight against the Skullcrawler because it's showing a certain type of ingenuity. Like, he earns that. You know, it would be easier for him to just break that chain and move on, but he earns it. He earns the weapon. He grabs the tree, he strips it, he bashes the Skullcrawler in the head. He earns the weapon. I think that is the better way to do it. You know, to have them go through like a journey and to let it reveal something about the character. You know, Kong using weapons against the Skullcrawler, it reveals his intelligence. Whereas Kong wakes up with the beast blood. And it doesn't
See, you're echoing.
Is he echoing again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything about his character. It's just
Yeah, it
handed
is.
to him. Maybe that.
Yes. Oh, C died again.
That's why fans are much less receptive to Kong getting power-ups. I don't know.
Uber Eats is delivering more deals. So
I don't think I've ever used Uber Eats in my entire life. Although I
I
can
did,
go from
and I
KFC
wasted
right
too
now.
much money, so I stopped using it.
That's the thing
Also,
is
to
that like, if
answer-
I have my own car, I can just go. It's not going to take me too long to go grab my takeout.
Yeah.
you
Also,
give
I
me
just
some?
want to state to Alice's question: if the tuxedo cat is what is your profile pic, then yes, it is adorable.
Is indeed an adorable, beautiful little
Oh,
boy. He's a
yeah.
beautiful
I love
boy.
I love
Yeah.
cats.
I had a tuxedo cat once.
Oh.
Tricky when you have a character like Godzilla, a character who's known for being so strong. Because the second you put him up against another character who can take him on, it seems to, for some reason, weaken fans' connection to Godzilla. Like, he suddenly is less cool, or they're worried that other people will view him as less cool, or something. I don't entirely know.
My only response to that is that perception coming from fans who are like teenagers or like young children? Because that just sounds like arguments I've heard and seen before, but are coming from people you know for a fact are like explicitly like 11, 10, 12, etc. Instead of like actual adult fans.
Fans don't love
I actually don't know if that's the case because this also applies to other characters that are like super strong, like Superman and Goku. Like the same
Yeah,
thing
I-
happens.
Yeah, I was
Not
about
that-
to bring up Superman. Like,
Yeah.
one of the big things that people, I think this is also what led to a lot of like the misinterpretation of Superman. The fact that Superman is unstoppable and just as powerful as he is led to a lot of people thinking, oh, so what if he stopped holding back? And as such, that completely showed a lot of misinterpretation and misrepresentation. And this is from full-grown adults. It's not just children or teenagers. So, and that's what led to Injustice and its repercussions, as well as just general vitriolic hate towards Superman as a character, which I still don't understand.
Yeah, and to a certain degree, even with Batman, even though he has no superpowers, and of course he's nowhere near Goku and Superman, but people think that he also can beat literally everything with prep time. So when you tell someone that Batman can do shit against this character, also there's a bunch of people that get offended.
I have seen people get offended, but like the people I've seen actually get offended and really take it to heart, I've seen are children. But like people who like will argue against it, I've seen before, and most of the times they're just arguing it from the meme standpoint. Unless like you're really deep into like the weeds of like power scaling versus debate style conversations, and in those cases, a lot of the times you're not really arguing because you like the character. You're arguing and your reputation is built on the argument rather than the character's popularity itself. Like certain people will argue in favor of certain characters because they know that character is so strong and the arguments they have are good enough to where no one else is really going to challenge them on that. And when like they end up losing, it's less because the character isn't as strong as I thought. I don't like the character as much more. No, I lost the argument. Now I'm baby bitch mad about it.
Yeah. I can speak from experience as someone who spent a lot of time in the death battle community. Yeah, pretty much everything you stated is right there.
Allow it if it's Mechagodzilla or King Ghidorah or something like that. But it's really interesting because these are the same fans who are also wanting to see a Godzilla versus Gamera movie, which is something we all want to see. Godzilla versus
Yes,
Gamera
please.
versus Ultraman, Godzilla versus Kong. But once you cross Godzilla over with another franchise, it adds this whole other layer of like whose fandom is better, whose character is better, and I don't think that's the point of Versus.
That's literally the point of Versus. Everyone does that. Like, what's it called? Star Wars versus Star Trek, Warhammer 40K versus like everyone, Halo versus Star Wars, Halo versus Warhammer. Anytime there is a conflict of fandoms, you're gonna the point is to enjoy the memes and then trash the other people because it's fun. That is literally the point.
Yeah, like Wolfman versus Dracula, Frankenstein versus Dracula. Like, come on, people.
The console wars between Mario and Sonic, right there.
Like the only again, and then most of the times where like the people who do actually take those fandom wars too seriously are almost always called out for being children about it. But the point is to indulge in the fun rivalry.
That's exactly. Why do you think Death Battle of all things has a community dedicated to it?
Mm-hmm.
It's because people enjoy having fun with this kind of stuff.
Or whose character is better, and I don't think that's the point of Versus. Stanley iconically says that when it comes down to Versus stories, which character is stronger than which character, it's up to the writer to decide. That's absolutely the truth.
It is the truth, but it doesn't mean that's a good philosophy to follow, because then that causes so many issues with your writing later on down the line, and your story becomes unsatisfying as a result.
So if the writer chooses to have Gamera beat Godzilla because of a misconception, or because he pulls an ability out of his ass that he never had before. Actually, Gamera does that all the time. Never mind. But still, if something like that happens in a versus match, so that's fair, right?
Like, I've never liked.
It's just the fact, like the writer will write, and that's it. If the writer writes in such a way that Kong wins, Kong won, but it's not like it's inevitable. It's not going to happen. Like Wingard even said it. Like the reason why he will have never let Kong win is because he was still mad about a fight that he had with a friend when he was little.
Yeah, well, that's Wingard slop for you. But
listen, that kind of spite is perfect fueling for storytelling. You can do that. You can do a lot with that kind of spite. I would know.
I know for me, like in general, the problem I see with any kind of like discussions of like writing a power set or character versus another character is that if you just want to argue that, because I am the writer, I have the authority to do what I want with a story, that is a terrible philosophy to have, because all it sets you up for is inconsistent writing, because what you care about more is satisfying your own ego with what you've written, rather than writing a story that's compelling and makes sense.
And also faithful to and in the case of a versus match, faithful to the characters that people love and want to see on screen, on paper, or just anywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, so basically, like any number of MCU movies post Endgame. Gotcha.
Like an easy hypothetical. If for some reason, some way, shape, or form, Halo crossover with Dragon Ball, and for some reason Master Chief could match Goku in a fist fight, even though I love Master Chief more as a character compared to Goku, I wouldn't want Master Chief to win, because the implications in universe for what that means are so damaging to the writing that I would never want it to happen.
In the hands of a different writer, Godzilla vs. Kong would have gone much differently, and Kong would have won, and they would have found a way to portray that victory believably, because they're just
probably not.
Well, I mean, like technically, yes. Like, there are ways to make it happen.
Characters, and they can win or lose depending on the scenario. Godzilla takes on Superman in the recent Godzilla Kong Justice League crossover comic, and in it he essentially one-shot kills Superman with the atomic breath. Now, Superman does have a vulnerability to atomic weapons. However, the Monsterverse Godzilla's atomic breath is not the same as the Toho Godzilla's. The Monsterverse Godzilla's atomic breath, as we see in King of the Monsters, as we see what happens in San Francisco, it is full of Titan radiation, which is far more like sunlight. While they say that Godzilla's atomic breath has like a frequency closer to kryptonite than radiation or whatever, in reality, Godzilla's atomic breath is more like sunlight. It
literally acts like Cherenkov radiation. which is this, like,
The damn thing blew a hole into the center of the planet.
well, no, I wouldn't even like. I'm not even including that. Like the idea that Godzilla's breath acts more like sunlight makes no sense.
By the way,
Like-
that kid kneeling and getting that close to Superman after, I'm assuming Superman got hit by Godzilla's atomic breath, that kid's dead.
That's Billy Batson.
That's Shazam.
Yeah, that's Shazam.
That's Shazam.
Yeah, that's
So-
definitely that Shazam right there.
Oh,
So
well,
it
I
makes
mean,
sense.
well, him in a kid form, would that make him immune to radiation?
I know
Probably,
he's, like,
considering
I know his
Shazam
form
relies on
has
magic.
Yeah, he's had some kind of magical resistance. Even
Can
in
you guys
his-
hear
We
me?
can hear you.
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Okay, cool. I just joined because this guy's pissing me off. That's it. I wasn't really planning on joining all that much. Then I said yes, then I said no, then I started debating it, and the more I listened to the stream, the more pissed off at this guy I'm getting. So yeah, I just joined out of spite.
It's a good motivator, but yeah, Godzilla use solar beam. It's super effective.
Yeah. I love what y'all mentioned about, spite, motivating someone's writing, because that's just Kathleen Kennedy's whole MO.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or
Which,
when-
say what you will, it's good.
Godzilla, though, that's going to be a big deal for Superman. That's more atomic. Point is, the writers clearly made a choice to make Superman weaker so that Godzilla could take him down, and then
That doesn't mean it's a good choice. That does not mean it's a good choice. On the contrary, I would argue it's a very, very bad choice, especially with what we've been established Superman can do. He can bring down heaven itself. He can move entire planets. He can kill God and resurrect him.
But also,
Ultraman-
comics, you always have to ask what Superman, like what has this one done? So comics can get away with it more easily than like movies.
It's like a feetless Superman. So I'm like,
Yeah.
and then there could be more.
Our basic understanding of the powers of Superman are entirely revolving around the meta surrounding him, and so one would naturally expect for him to have at least some of the powers that he has been established at this point to have.
Yes, but even if he does have the power set, he doesn't exactly have the exact same strength as another Superman.
Exactly.
Well, it's like one of those things where it's
Nor
like
nor has he likely gone through the same experiences as the mainline Superman.
Actually, a good example of that is I think it was some DC channel that was covering the crossover, and I think that because Superman's like proposing to Lois, that would contradict what was going on in current DC at the time. So as a result, we knew for a fact it was like an Elseworld story. So there's that as well. But I think what he's about to say here is interesting.
Oh.
But still, do we know the parting point by which that happened? Like, because proposing to Lois is a pretty huge deal in Superman comics.
I think like at the same time that the comic had just come out, Superman and Lois were already married by that point, because Jonathan was already around during the run that. And also, Jonathan was what's it called? He was like a young adult, because that was when the Superman comic where Jonathan took over for his father was going on, like around the same time.
Right.
In the story, Ultraman would slice Godzilla in half, and that's a fact you could get furious about, and I would fight tooth and nail about it because I could not wrap my head around it. I just wouldn't allow Godzilla to be portrayed that way. But that's the honest truth. But if those two characters cross over, that
Actually, by your own logic, it's not the honest truth. Depending on whatever the writer says, Godzilla would be able to stomp Ultraman with just a flick of his finger. So no, that's not the honest truth.
I'm really happy that you brought up that Stan Lee example, by the way. I'm really happy that he brought that up.
You're welcome. Like, I don't understand, like, why he's saying this is a fact here when it contradicts everything he just said previously. And if anything, where is he getting this idea from? Because if he's saying it comes from the idea that based on power scaling these characters, Ultraman beats Godzilla, not in every case.
For King Kong.
Yeah. The writer is not the god. The writer has a power and authority over the story, but he is bound by the rules that he makes.
Mm-hmm. Well,
because they will build his strength up so that he can go toe to toe with Ultraman, or they will weaken Ultraman so he can go toe to toe with Godzilla. Godzilla versus Gamera. Godzilla's probably going to wash Gamera, to be honest with you, but they will have to boost Gamera's strength so that the two of them can fight. Same deal with Godzilla versus Kong. And as I said, these power-ups, they're nothing new to the Godzilla franchise.
Listen, Godzilla versus Gamera's appeal is the same reason Godzilla versus King Kong has such appeal. That fight could be fucking insane. Oh,
Yeah,
I think
and then they
these
ruined
fans
it,
in the room with you.
and then they ruined it. I feel like, honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you. When the Monsterverse was still, fresh in people's minds, when Godzilla 2014 was still out, I had no idea that they wanted to do a GVK movie. In the future, at least that's what they were setting up.
I
With
learned
Kong
about
Skull
that.
Island,
I learned about that around. I think they announced the idea around the release of Shin Godzilla.
yeah,
like
I think that was
the
when
whole
Skull Island came out as well.
Yeah,
yeah, like the prospect of a crossover between King Kong and Godzilla wasn't even a thing until a couple years after 2014 came out. Like when 2014 came out, the most that they were hoping for was a trilogy to spin off from 2 more movies to spin off from 2014. But then the whole announcement about King Kong is like, okay, all right, well, we can do King Kong now. We can do GVK.
Yeah, I was hoping like the entire time that there was gonna be like something big that was gonna happen because before any trailers and any announcements for who was directing King of the Monsters came out, I was under the impression that they were just setting up for some huge apocalyptic event or something like a huge Infinity War-esque styled Godzilla movie, just massive scale and scope and just just a tense and gripping storyline, just absolutely gripping, prolapsing even. But no, it was just a setup to have Godzilla and Kong fight. And on the surface, it doesn't really seem like that bad of an idea because there's enough of an appeal to. I mean, I was actually kind of scared for a GVK movie because I was under the impression that they were going to have Kong lose. So like I thought Kong was going to lose the entire time, and I didn't want that to happen because I was always Team Godzilla. And then Godzilla won, and I felt completely hollow, like the earth, because the way we got to that point was just completely absurd.
Someone type, dude, just play the game.
out of curiosity, have you seen the original King Kong versus Godzilla?
The original, I started watching it last week. I never finished it.
Okay. Wait, which version?
The Japanese dub. I don't want to watch the English dub.
Oh, okay,
I want
the
the pure.
Okay, the good one. All right, cool. I was just wondering.
Taking on Godzilla.
Yeah.
Lightning powers. At the end of the day, I think fandom wars are really silly and really childish. The characters we love should be allowed to cross over with each other.
Yes, they're childish, but they can be fun as hell.
Fun with and engage with. And it's sad that there's still so much hostility. I got booed at G-Fest because I said I was on Team Kong. People have been upset with me for...
I was there for that. I understand like the sentiment of going to like a Godzilla convention and then getting booed by a bunch of other Godzilla fans. But I want to ask, do you really think the vast majority of the people booing you were booing you because they actually like hate you, or they're just having fun because, as you said, it's silly childish stuff? Like it's
Yeah, imagine going to a WWE match where the majority of people are in favor of one particular wrestler, and then they give the mic to the fan to voice his opinions, and his opinions is on the other wrestler. Like, yeah, I would expect everybody to boo you. I don't know what did you think was going to happen?
Or you're at like a sports game and you're at the rival team's like home field wearing the merch of your team, and they show you on like the jumbotron. I bet you're probably gonna get booed if you're gonna point to your team to win.
Yeah,
if
I've
you're lucky,
actually
you're
lived
gonna
that
get a hot dog
experience.
thrown at your face.
Or I've seen that experience at a hockey game. They have like a camera specifically for that.
Exactly, yeah. Like that's part of the idea of the team sports. Like before, if anyone ever watches this outside of like the people viewing now and are like, well, are you saying that like it's okay if like someone got death threats over saying I would prefer Kong to win over Godzilla? No, we're obviously not saying that. But like in the interest of being as charitable as possible to all parties involved, if like you're in rival territory, essentially, people are gonna play into the oh yeah, you guys are gonna lose, we hate you type of mentality and have fun with it.
Yeah, like
I never understood getting death threats over it either.
Yeah, that's people overreacting.
No, the people who usually send these death threats are usually like stupid kids, like who are again way too attached to the property. So as a result, they're gonna do stupid things like that.
Yeah, you don't agree with me? Well, you know what? You should die. You should. I was gonna do the low tier god thing. I don't know if this is your stream. This is your house. I don't know if I'm allowed. But yeah, no, like it's the same sentiment.
If this stream was going on for several hours, I bet the censors wouldn't kill me for it. So, but I think the fact that this is only like about a 2-hour stream, they would probably remove my nuts for that.
Yeah, all right.
But yeah, no, like in that case, I'm like, anytime people do, I'm like, my brother in Christ, you are literally 12 years old. It is okay.
Yes, never listen to the opinions of people that whose age digits don't start with 2.
Exactly.
On King Kong. People have been upset with me for years about this. People comment all the time about how I'm not a real Godzilla fan because I wanted Kong to win in Godzilla vs. Kong. Whenever I post a fun crossover picture of Godzilla vs. Kong on Twitter, people lose their minds about it.
We're gonna go into the Twitter things because I have all of those pictures pulled up.
Really mean about it. And I think it's really silly. I don't know.
Oh my God.
Bye. Thank you all for watching. Big thanks to the people on the live stream. Big thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. Big thank you to the channel.
Yeah, that's all just and shilling. So yeah, if people are being overtly mean about it, that is understandable.
Yeah,
but
like,
let's go into this because this was the thing I think that essentially sparked off this video. Where
before we continue, I would like to say something relating to some of the comments from at the start of the stream. So I will not accept any Titanosaurus slander. Why? How dare you, D-Man, slander my boy? No.
You should do what some of the fans do, like some of the what he said the fans were doing, getting death threats. You should do that. You should send him one.
Look, I respect him enough to not. And second, relating to the Mothra comic, Antra reminds me of Megatsuchi.
But
look that up.
I will look
that up after the stream if you want.
Yeah, but yeah. So here, this is D-Man's original comment. So take away Godzilla's natural regeneration. This fight goes crazy hard, or don't. Kong will just kill him twice. So I would say if I was a random person on Twitter, I would take this as, you know what, fun banter. You want to really say this? Cool. Well, yeah, no, dude, Godzilla is massively bigger than Kong 05, even at the same size. Godzilla rips him apart. And we're gonna comment investigate all of this and like one little back and forth. Even there, they weakened Godzilla's atomic breath so Kong could survive. Angry shrugged it off, makes more sense. But King Kong, nah. Take away Godzilla's source of Godzilla's regeneration. He's just a T-Rex. Sorry, Kong gets killed. So and nothing really hostile there. There's a big size difference. Sorry, man. No, every combo like this requires nerfing Kong's opponent to make it fair. Even if you have to nerf one of them, there's 0 point even mentioning a fight. Kong wins almost 0 fights, even without plot armor. It's not fucked. Like again, not even like super aggressive, just dude. That's obviously in reference to Kong. This again, I'm fine. Just meme. Not hostile. This is someone being like, don't engage with it because it's bait. And I just want to see who responded to it here. I know. How? I'm imagining it's not. It's a mild take. Even someone saying like it's a mild take. And I know this guy had 3 comments, so let's just see what those 3 comments were. So it's like survived. This one has 3 comments to it too. My brother in Christ. Like I'd say the poop cutter. That's like probably the closest we got to something somewhat inflammatory. Colin kills fire protecting his wife. I believe he still kills version of Godzilla.
Yes, I
So
do
this person's even agree with him. Sure about that. Killed by bullets. If you have to nerf Godzilla's abilities and the fight is already lost.
And that's right also.
After breaking Godzilla's abilities, see him regenerate. I like this one. Death battle, so shit is annoying at this point. So this person would technically be agreeing with the sentiment that D-Man had in his video, where there's no point to have these kinds of discussions, even though D-Man's the one who brought it up here on Twitter. This is the closest that we've gotten to inflammatory, where he's saying smartest Kong fan, and
that's not even inflammatory. That's just a friendly jab.
Aim for my most sensitive fan, bro. Casually getting mad about a character being stronger than a monkey, not bigger than Godzilla's legs. And then yeah, this is the person who agrees with D-Man is the person stirring the pot here. So doesn't really help the argument either. Not inflammatory, not inflammatory. Yeah, and just people engaging with it.
Do you remember when the GVK first came out, and a lot of the arguments between who would win between a fight, Godzilla and Kong, a lot of the time it's just a giant wall of text explaining why Godzilla would win, and then for the side of Kong it's just monkey.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Funny thing,
I remember.
Black. There was a video by a channel called Roanoke Gaming that basically did a dissection of King Kong, of
Oh, yeah, I remember
Titanus
that.
Kong, in that end. It was fun. I like his work.
So the thing about this wall of tweets here,
No,
is that
I want to
D-Man-
I want to go as much as I can because anytime you go through tweets, someone's gonna be like, well, you didn't find this one, and I want to go through all of them. So that's why I'm going through every thread that I can see that has someone.
Get your
respond to
hazmat
at least
suit.
once.
So basically, so D-Man's like generalizing like a wall of tweets of people like engaging with his argument, as like inflammatory.
Yeah, like I think someone had just said that he had rooted for it's this one here. You were rooting for Kong, right? In Godzilla vs Kong. Sorry about your goat getting his ribs broke. Like again, that's not even super inflammatory.
Yeah, but he's considering a lot
And then
of
this is the same dude from the other thread who agreed with D-Man about Godzilla fans being oversensitive, trying to stir the pot.
So he's basically just pulling an Adam Does Movies here, where he just takes he's like considering any sort of engagement, even if it's just positive, as inflammatory. Like,
I can't believe the thing that I can't believe that this happened. Why would this happen? Why would me stirring the pot get people angry?
Yeah.
See,
and
you beat me to it, damn it.
Let's go through the quotes. This fight goes crazier at the fight. Kong win planes. This one's not even being critical towards him either. Again, maybe you could say it's inflammatory because he's calling D-Man a Kong fan. It's like I watch no legs, no arm, fly 40 here, play for both. Just fought hard with starved, has the heart virus. It happened twice.
I think the conversation around power scaling specifically for the Monsterverse is somewhat what's it called? What's the word? It's not pointless, but rather not vapid. What's the word? I can't think of the word, but
irrelevant.
Diluted? Is that what you said? Because I think diluted is the proper word.
That's what I said.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that I agree because I'd say it is diluted mainly because the writing that gets us to the point in which we are is so incoherent that it really doesn't matter. Like it's so. I said this before. It's very difficult to properly scale these monsters, and we can only get approximations because the writing is just so inconsistent that it really doesn't matter. The power levels of each Titan will fluctuate depending on what the plot needs at that point. For example, in GVK, Godzilla can pretty much destroy all of humanity 10 times over, but he will struggle with Kong, and the explanation we get is, he was just toying with Kong. Well, he's a threat to his alpha status. At least that's what he thinks. He's really not, and there's no reason why he would think that, but apparently that's what the film subtext is telling us. So if he wants to get rid of that threat, why doesn't he do that? Oh, well, because we need to fight. Okay, cool, fine, sure, whatever. Then the movie says, he needs to hunt down Ghidorah's soul essence, whatever the heck. Well, if he could have sensed it this whole time, then he's had like a 5-year window to be able to do that. Why doesn't he do it? Oh, well, because then the movie can't happen.
Thing is with Mechagodzilla, there's at least a distinction in that.
You don't even need to think about power scale. Just like regular scaling, it's completely broken. Like in KSI, Kong was the size of Kong's knee, basically in GVK, and he's supposed to be a teenager. So I'm just asking, what type of animal at a teenager state is at the height of the knee of an adult? No animal is. No primate.
That's so dude, I was thinking about that last week because Zuko is apparently a baby, but he's taller than Kong was when he was a teenager, and when Kong was a teenager he looked like an adult.
Yeah, you know,
So-
that's the difference between someone growing up in Latin America and someone growing up in Europe.
Jesus, dude.
Say what?
Oh my God, that's true. No, but seriously, does Zuko just have Down syndrome or what? That's the only explanation I could come up with, and it sounds like a
That
joke, but I'm
looks-
It's
dead serious.
proportions.
Like, I'll tell you this much right here. Like, even it took us this long, and this guy's referencing a totally different argument. And the only way that you could consider this inflammatory is that because there's a swear word used, and because he's comparing this argument to this, that he could be referring to D-Man here. But even then, barely inflammatory. I just want to keep going through this so I can say that on stream, we looked at like all of these, and that makes five of these.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
let
Those
explain
comments
who
are
used
about as
them.
inflammatory as a strand of cotton.
But yeah, Black,
Yeah,
to
this
your
one
point
kind
about
of inflammatory.
But Black, to your point about power scaling the Monsterverse, I'm actually someone who did do that for a video. And this was before GXK and Monarch. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
You were gonna say something about Mechagodzilla as well.
Oh, yeah, right.
Real quick,
The
I just want to say
method-
before anyone says
Zim
anything,
is
I finally
speaking,
found
everybody.
one person that's finally somewhat kind of like a douchebag about this. It
Oh.
took me this long. It's one dude so far, but continue.
Okay. But yeah, with Mechagodzilla, there's at least an explanation in that fight was immediately after the fight against Kong, which gave Godzilla a heavy-hitting blow. Dude was clunked on the head, and
Oh no! I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how if he wanted to get rid of, I think the skull is what he wanted to get rid of, because apparently the skull had his essence. If he could sense it at that point in time, why couldn't he have sensed it at any point after it was removed in King of the Monsters? And if he could sense it, then what was he doing for the past 5 years not doing anything?
That's the plot hole.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I was talking about.
I agree with you.
The most that you could say is potentially like it wasn't like activated or tampered with until like more recently. But yeah, even then, that's a stretch.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that humongous plot hole in Justice League where, yeah, Darkseid just happened to forget, out of the millions of worlds he's conquered, he happened to forget the one world that defeated him, that also happened to have the one thing his entire existence is dedicated towards. Like, yeah, he just kind of forgot. And Zack Snyder's explanation, I think it was, oh, he just lost a lot of blood. Oh, okay, so that explains why he lost an entire world. Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, he is functionally speaking a god. One world is one among many.
Yeah, but it happens to have. Not only was it the only one that managed to defeat him, but also the only one that happens to have the anti-life equation, which is the one thing he's been looking for his entire. I don't even want to call it a life, but yeah, for his entire existence, ever since he was, banished by the old gods. At least that's the implication, because we're working on meta understanding of Darkseid. Ever since he became Darkseid, he's been searching for the anti-life equation, and the one world that defeated him is also the one world where that's where it is. So, I would, and on top of the fact that he had that it is the entirety of his army was there to witness it, and not one of them brought it up to him. It was only after like Steppenwolf discovered it by just interacting with the mother boxes, which are also on the Earth, by the way, which are also on planet Earth. It was him, after discovering the second one, that he found out that the anti-life equation was on the planet. Which how do you harbor an equation in a planet? How do you even do that? I don't know. But yeah,
you write it in. It's a cosmic metaphysical thing. You can get away with a lot of things when it comes to those.
Yeah, the thing is,
I wouldn't call it an equation, because like in DC, it's like an actual formal mathematical equation, whereas here it's just an omega symbol inscripted into the Earth. Like if you hit the Earth really hard, it'll cause a molten omega symbol to show up. Which, I mean, the omega symbol isn't even like synonymous with the anti-life equation.
Well, even then, even then, considering that there was supposed to be like a follow up to it, and it's not even who even knows if the stuff on that ground was even supposed to be the equation itself or something that indicates that yes, hey guys, the anti-life equation is on this planet, maybe not in this exact spot, but it's somewhere out here, but it's on this planet.
Oh,
So
we
the
know for a
anti-life
fact
equation-
what's supposed
the
to
anti-life
happen.
equation is the anti-life equation is just 24.
Yep. No, actually, no. The anti-life
It's not
equation.
24.
Wait, what?
It's something better than 24.
25.
25.
Oh, so 25 is the number that'll help. 25 is the number that'll help Darkseid control the wills of everybody in the multiverse. Great, cool, nice to know. Nice to know that such a innocuous number is the number of eternal damnation. Thank you.
It's a
It's
joke.
not 6. It's not 4.
It's a joke.
Oh wait, it is.
Yes.
Also, like,
No, because you mentioned it was literally just a giant omega symbol. I looked up what omega symbol means. Omega is the 24th letter of the Greek alphabet, so that's what the joke was.
Oh, that makes sense. Right, sorry, my bad.
Yeah,
My fault, gang.
it's a joke. It's a joke.
It would be funny though. It would be funny because, we have information as to what the rest of the Snyder movies were going to be. Not once was the mechanics of how the anti-life equation works really part of that plan. Neither the original plans nor the reworked plans. None of it was just explicit. There was no, apparently Lex Luthor was going to find it and give it to Darkseid, I guess, and then Lex Luthor would have just died horribly. I don't know. It's weird, but the whole idea of Godzilla, not realizing that the thing that he decapitated 5 years ago is the thing that he's been looking for this whole time is very similar to that plotline in Justice League.
Yeah,
Justice League is not a very good movie, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
To wrap this up here, he responded to this tweet here where he's like, it was just for fun, just a goofy little way to say, I think it would be fun to watch these fellas duke it out. The OG2 had me joking about Kong winning, but I figured it was obvious enough to avoid y'all crying like always about power scaling and how strong Goji is. Well, if it's a goofy little fun way to say that you think it would be fun to watch them fight, then therefore the people who are talking about how the fight would go down would still be engaging with the tweet in good faith. And obviously, Monster Antibody says, no fun allowed. Everything must be deadly serious and commentary on the entire fandom. But most of the people here are having fun with it. Like, the most upvoted comment is some dude, literally, like, a bunch of people having back and forths with Demon about it in a fun way. Like, there's very little. This comment makes no sense.
Yeah, the only
This
guy
one
who's
makes
been
far more
actively
sense.
toxic. The only guy who's been actively toxic on either side is someone who agrees with you.
Exactly.
That Kong.
Yeah, that kind of argues the opposite. Actually, kind of makes you look. It kind of makes you look bad.
Yeah, or like makes post to start a conversation, says we're crying when we take part in a conversation. That's literally what happened.
Yeah, it's like he had to make this announcement. It's like, yo, guys, I didn't mean for this to be like, a serious, crazy thing. I just did it for fun, and everyone else is just going like, who is he talking to?
It reminds me. It's kind of like how you're playing with your brother. You're like play fighting, and then your mom shows up and is like, "Guys, stop fighting!" And you just look at her. You just look at your mom like, "Huh?"
Same thing. Yeah.
I think another thing too is that, like, if considering the fact that like him getting booed about being on Team Kong happened so many years ago. If I was someone who was if I had a lot of issues with that occurring where I remembered it and it's something that does kind of bother me, I would not then make a joke post referring to a similar topic, because then I might, which he didn't really in this case. He didn't really get a lot of people negatively being hostile towards him about it. But like, to avoid getting that negative feedback that bothered me the first time, I probably wouldn't make a post like that in the first place. That's just me.
I mean, if that happened to me 5 years ago, I'd just bury it deep down with the rest of my emotions, like a very cringe memory that just pops into my mind every couple of years. Like, hey, Rooney, do you remember when this happened? I'm just like that. That's what I would do. I wouldn't turn that into a video.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not the same person as him, so.
No, I'm better. I'm way better. Like, ontologically.
That's
debatable.
Really?
Debatable under multiple contexts.
But
I am better because I am 6 foot, and also I don't have a massive collection of Godzilla. Therefore, I am better. Also, I have Space Marine 2. I bet he doesn't have that.
He probably
That makes
bounced
me a
off
better
because
person.
he's a filthy scrub. But yeah, we've gone over this video here. I'm happy for everyone who joined, and we actually hit the 2-hour mark, which I'm happy that we did. So yeah, join us for the next stream. I'm gonna have to get that set up. There's a few videos I have in the pipeline that I might want to do, but what I will say is that expect a short next week, same day next week, and Thursday every single week. And I appreciate my large set of co-hosts here. We'll start from the bottom, make our way to the top. We'll let the black man chill first.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that this stream made me a little angry, made me a little upset because D-Man was saying words that I did not like that he said in terms of writing, because I'm very touchy about that subject. Bit of an announcement. I might have to go on hiatus. There's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes that are preventing me from doing the stuff I want to do. Some network issues, some hardware issues, and some money issues. And yeah, I will have to go on hiatus for a bit, fix my stuff up, and when I come back, I will come back swinging. You can join the Rumble as always. You can join the channel, same name for both. Rumble is explicitly for music, by the way. So if you want to hear some tunes, you want to hear some radical tunes, I got you. I got you. It's not what you think, though. It's mostly ambient stuff. What else? I'm writing a novel called God Morgue. Stay tuned for that. And watch Mad God. I started watching it recently. Mad God is... Just watch it. Just watch it. I'm not going to say anything, not going to describe it. Just watch Mad God.
There you go. C.
Okay, well, this has been one of your guests, the Sea Monster. I have a channel called Sea Monster Essays where I make essay videos, and I also host live streams. As of earlier today, I had posted a supercut of the insanity that was the Adam Does Movies Nosferatu 2024 stream. So it's kind of like a more bite-sized, or at least as bite-sized as it could possibly be. Like at least a more, like kind of like a more, like sort of like digestible length thing, even though it's like 4 hours long.
It's twice the length of the original movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
As it should.
As it should. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Yeah, there's some pretty fun little bits here and there, funny edits there throughout the thing, so that could give its own little flavor as opposed to the stream itself. There's like one edit in particular. I won't say anything, but that is like pretty much my personal favorite. But I mean, I won't say what it is, but you'll know. If you'll know, you'll know. I'm currently working on scripts for some videos coming up. I think the GXK essay video is probably going to be what will be next. But that one's probably going to take some time to get around to. That probably won't even be out for like at least a couple months. But yeah, and follow me on Twitter, Sea Monster, KCI, so on. And yeah.
Craft of mine.
Alrighty. You can find me on YouTube at Minecraft World 1954. That's my @ or just Minecraft World, where I post kaiju and versus related stuff, which is prominent to this topic. And as for upcoming projects on YouTube, I have a redux of my Godzilla The Arrival pitch, which I have been slowly working on the outline for. I am currently on the first battle between Behemoth and the monsters, so there's that. So where we meet Behemoth. And then I also have a Nemesis character study, which I have also been working on, though I'm taking a short break from that, partially to focus on school stuff and this project, and also work on a Gamera concept. And then you can also find me on Instagram and Kara, where I post artworks and concepts for a Greek mythology-inspired kaiju story and Godzilla AU, among other things, such as said Gamera concept. I have unveiled my Gauss design recently, which I am actually really proud of. I really like what I did with Gals. As well as I am on Blue Sky, where I also post the artworks and say things similar to what you can find on Twitter, similar to what you would find from others on Twitter. And for recommendations, go play Sonic Shadow Generations and go watch Jurassic Park. Go read Project Nemesis. Go read the new Mothra comic. And Tiamat deserve better. Bye.
STE.
What?
You're showing.
Oh, okay. My name is GSTE, and you can find my YouTube channel. I do video essays of Godzilla topics, or basically random Godzilla stuff. I do in the community posts, or they call it posts now. I do Godzilla pictures, different stuff, mostly the Heisei era. And yeah, that's about it. YouTube channel, it's GSTE, and that's it.
Low.
I'm just a dog with a gas tank looking for a reason to blow myself up. That's all there is. Also, if I have to give recommendations, you know what? I'll go with a book. As some may know, there's a new TV show for Alien. So there are some books for Alien that are really nice. Like the one I'll tell people to read is Into Charybdis. It's like this political warfare book. So like it's really nice. So yeah, that's all.
Awesome.
And the Vic.
All right. Well, I have been the Kaijunaut. You can find me on YouTube as Kaijunaut, where I talk about all things kaiju related. I do live streams from time to time with some guests you see here. So look forward to more of those. I do also do commissions. I have them open through my Ko-fi, which you can find on my socials on Instagram as JaCrispyVic and on Twitter as Vic Monstrous, where I post my art and such. As for recommendations, I would recommend checking out, if you haven't already, Saban's Power Rangers, the film. I rewatched it, and it was just as great as I remember it.
It's the 2017 one, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
I've been meaning to watch that movie. I've heard something about it. I don't know if it was good or bad, but I've heard something about it. I know that it exists.
Plays Zordon. That's the interesting thing to me.
Bryan Cranston.
My wife morphed here. Something morphed my wife.
My wife. And I have a right to know.
Right to know.
I deserve more.
Deserve that.
But yeah, you can find me almost anywhere under this same name here. You just got to add an OG underscore in front of it on Twitter, or YT behind it on PlayStation. Everywhere else, no one stole my name. So yeah, join the Discord if you haven't, where we talk about a bunch of topics from Godzilla to other media, and you post your art there. Or if you're really very generous, please sign up for the Patreon. Well, $1 a month, you'll get a shout out at the end of my videos, and it'll just help me have more time to set aside for streams, video content, and just general stuff that will help the channel. So yeah, I thank you all for sticking with me tonight. Have a great rest of your night. See y'all on Thursday for my next upload. And
yes,
remember,
Semper Fi, motherfucker.